All right, I think we're live. Welcome everyone to another Maran Motoring live stream here on this rainy Sunday night here in Pittsburgh. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. And so thanks so much for joining in. Hopefully the audio will be better this time. Last time it was a little iffy towards the end, so let me know if it doesn't sound great. But should be all good here. Fingers crossed YouTube won't let us down this time. But anyway, so like all the other usual live streams, will go for about 2 hours here, and I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green lettering. And if you want to become a member and to get that priority answering as well, there's a link in the description to join in. But anyway, so I see we got a bunch of people already joined. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late here. Was refusing to connect to my phone, unfortunately, but I think we're all set now. So anyway, thanks for joining in, Brian, Jordan, Trenton Car Guy, Aziz, and Newt as well, and Kyle, Doug, Wheatman, and Raphael, Sean, Cam Jam. Thanks everyone else as well here, Alex and Taste Bud. So I see Aziz says, hello everyone, just happened to be on YouTube in my hotel room from Turkey, Istanbul. That's awesome. Thanks for joining in all the way over there. I hope it's, I don't even know what time it is over there, but hope it's a nice time over there and enjoy your time over there. And let me see. Trenton Car Guy says, saw a Cadillac XLR on my way to work this morning. Haven't seen one of those in a while. I actually saw an XLR like a week or two ago as well, and it was the first time I'd seen one in forever too. It was really awesome. So I don't know. I guess all the XLR drivers decided to head out in their XLRs this past month. And Newt says the last time we saw an XLR was like probably 3 years ago. Yeah, they're definitely rare for sure. And yeah, so let me see other questions. Trent Cargas says, also a customer or a friend of a customer brought a second-gen Audi R8 over to my work. I'm not exactly in a wealthy part of town, so it's quite unusual. That's pretty cool. R8s are always fun to see as well, and also not super common either, so always a fun treat to see. And Sean says, hi, Matt. Anything new on a TRD/GR Camry? Nothing at all. And that was something people chatted with me about last week too. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard any good rumors. The only thing that I've heard rumor wise is it'll get the hybrid max setup that you see in the Crown, which isn't a super sporty setup. So I would assume for a GR, there would be something unique there. I don't think TRD is going to come back for the Camry, just because it seems like TRD is more of a truck thing these days. And for the cars, it seems like GR would be the way to go. I could be wrong. That's just my guess, but haven't heard anything solid. And I'm guessing, maybe they will tease something around next spring when the Camry's supposed to, debut for the regular versions. That would be more appropriate timing, in my opinion, as far as when they'd start teasing the next one, if there is a next one coming down the road. But, we'll have to see. I mean, it made a little more sense with the TRD version because, they had the V6 in the regular Camry, and it was a great way to bolster the demand for that V6 to justify keeping it around, so it wasn't a complete waste to keep around, because very few people actually buy a regular V6 Camry. But with the GR version, it's like, is there going to be enough demand there for it? We'll see. I hope so, but I don't know what the bean counters are thinking behind the scenes at Toyota right now. But anyway, so let me see. And Nate says, great to see you. How was Thanksgiving? It was great. Hope all of you had a great Thanksgiving as well, and hope you're all nice and full from all the leftovers, and just had a nice relaxing weekend here to thaw after all the busyness of family stuff and Black Friday stuff and all that, which I know can usually get hectic. So I hope everyone's feeling good. Aziz says 5 a.m. here, jet lagged as hell. Well, yeah, feel free to go to sleep or whatever you need to do there, but thanks so much for joining in, Aziz, and yeah, enjoy your time over there. And Joel says, hey, Matt, have you heard about the Jeep Gladiator 4xEs blowing up due to thermal runaway? I read the floor of the rear is the middle casing of the battery, which may be the issue. Interesting. So, I guess you're talking about the Wrangler 4xE because there's no Gladiator 4xE. And I think that's one of the things I talked about in the weekly update. That's coming in 2025 for the Gladiator finally. But as far as the Wranglers, I haven't heard about that. Yeah, I'm not in the Jeep community or follow up on that. I haven't heard any recalls or any massive things about it, but I'm not super following all of those all the time either. But that's pretty crazy. Hopefully there's not too many of them, and hopefully it's not a big issue, and it doesn't create any dangerous situations for anybody. That's pretty wild. And Trenton Car Guy says worked through Black Friday thankfully, and too broke for all the expensive stuff right now. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that for sure. And Luco, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night here. They say, I'm delivering oil to a power plant in North Dakota. I left this morning from McKees Rocks, PA, so nice way to end Thanksgiving weekend. That's quite the drive. I hope you have a good drive. And Man, North Dakota, one of the few states I haven't been to. I've been to a good bit of them, but yeah, I've never been able to explore Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, or anything. Been to Montana, but yeah, it's beautiful in that part of the country. So enjoy the drive, and that's pretty cool. That's what you do. And thanks so much for the super chat as well, Luke. And Cam Jam says there's a 2019 Camry XSE V6 near me for around 27 grand. Is that worth it over a Q50 with the 3.7 if I'm planning to keep it for a long time? I mean, the Q50 is definitely going to be the better handler. It's a more dynamic vehicle. You know, the V6 Camry is, especially the XSE trim. I mean, it's sportier for these, current generation Camrys, but it's, it's not a sports sedan like the Q50 is, if I'm totally honest. I mean, the TRD version certainly livens it up, but you're still dealing with a front wheel drive vehicle, not a rear wheel drive vehicle like the Q50. So I'd say the Q50 would probably be the better driver. If it were my money, I'd probably stick with the Q50, to be totally honest. But if you're looking for something a little more spacious, if you want something with front wheel drive, or if you want something that will run forever. I mean, the 3.7 in the Q50s is a pretty solid motor from what I've heard, but it's going to be hard to beat a Camry as far as reliability goes. So if you want the absolute most reliable thing, the Camry could be the better play there as well. But hopefully that helps you a little bit, Cam Jam. But both great cars. And let me see. So Aziz says, I've noticed loads of Fiats here. I was surprised. Not many Honda or Toyota vehicles. Yeah, one thing a lot of people don't realize is Fiat is massive. They are a wildly successful company. I think they globally, I think they sell, if not the most cars, I mean, they are really towards the top. I mean, they sell a ton of Fiats. And that's why whenever they last year announced the Fiat 500e for the States, and people were like, do you think anyone's going to really buy a little thing with 150 miles of range or whatever it has, that'll probably be expensive and, all that. And they were like, we don't honestly care if it sells. We don't care about whether any Fiats sell well in America. They're like, this is like a fun experiment for us. Like, Fiat is massive and they can just sell a car in the US just for kicks, just to like, be like, oh, let's do a little experiment. Like, that's how loaded Fiat is. And so, yeah, and that's how, they're sell all over the world. I mean, I think the 500e is like one of the number one sellers, not only in Italy, but in other parts of Europe and stuff. I mean, obviously they own Italy, but I mean, everything else they just own as well. It seems in Europe and stuff, tons of Fiats. So yeah, they're a really successful company. And I know a lot of people will hear it's a running joke, like Fiats, like no one takes any of them seriously, but like the rest of the world, like Fiats are what everyone buys. It's kind of wild. And let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, I didn't get a very fair impression of North Dakota. I was driving a semi in 6-degree weather in a blizzard. Not a fun time. Man, yeah, that would definitely put a damper on the experience, I'm sure. It takes a lot of bravery there. Thanks for doing what you do, Truck and Car Guy. And Spy Harpy says, North Dakota, I bought my first 91 Silver NSX in Fargo. Only one registered in the state. Nice drive back home to California. What a place to buy an NSX. That is so crazy story. That's funny. It's the only one registered in this state. That's impressive. So now there's officially no NSXs in North Dakota. So if you're a North Dakota resident, you want to stand out, you can guaranteed have the only NSX in North Dakota if you buy one of those. That's cool, but fun story. And kudos to you for making a road trip to buy a car too. A lot of people haven't wanted to do that in the past few years, especially to try and avoid markups, but it's awesome that you're able to do a fun road trip. I love road trip in new cars. It's always fun. Raphael says, one of the guys at work is on the waiting list for an Amira. I like the idea that it has my V6, but with a supercharger. Yeah, the Amira is really cool. So it was kind of funny whenever I was on the Tacoma drive, which that'll be coming out here this week. When we were there, Sophion from Redline Reviews had an Amira as his press loaner. He got a press vehicle while he was in LA there. And I believe he already posted his review on the Amira. And check it out if you haven't. I haven't had time to watch it yet, so I'm sure he'll give more impressions in his video. But I mean, the Amira is a really cool idea. It's just, with Lotuses, I think, what he was kind of seeing is that, they're a little rough around the edges still. And, it's not going to have the polish of a Porsche. And so as long as you go into it, knowing that it's Porsche money, but it's not Porsche precision or Porsche build quality and things like that, as long as you're okay with the quirkiness, I think Amira is still a really solid idea. And I think, yeah, if you're talking about engines only, I mean, everything else, I don't know. But as far as engines, I think the Toyota V6 with a supercharger on it is going to probably be the more reliable way to go versus, I mean, Porsche motors are pretty good. They're just expensive with maintenance. But anyway, yeah, I think that'd be a pretty cool option. I really like the Amira. It's beautiful. Sophion said he was getting looks everywhere he went, even in LA, where it's a little harder to impress people. Everyone was still stopping and staring at that. But love the Amira. Anyway, Pure Race Performance. Thank you so much for the super chat. They said, what do you think about the 2019 Audi S5 Sportback? I love the S5 Sportback. It was a ton of fun. I had one a few years back. I think my review was probably on, I think it was like a 2021 maybe that I had. I believe the same generation though for the 2019s. They're great. I mean, it's kind of one of those do-it-all vehicles that, it's kind of, I really loved it the same way I love the Kia Stinger, where you have a bunch of power, a bunch of practicality with a huge hatch. You have great handling, great comfort, and it just does everything you throw at it. It's one of those Swiss Army knife kind of cars, and I love it for it. So I really like the S5 Sportback, and especially if you get it on the used market. I'm not sure what the prices are on a 2019. But I'm sure it's probably just as cheap at this point as the Kia, because I feel like Stingers held their value a little bit better than Audis typically do. So, I mean, you can probably get a pretty good deal on the S5. The only thing I will always say, my blanket statement about used German vehicles in particular, European vehicles in general, is that the electrical systems and the maintenance costs and stuff get to be expensive. There's a reason why, used European stuff is cheap, because, you got to pay more, after you actually buy the vehicle with all the ownership costs. So, as long as that's something you're comfortable with, or if you can do some of that stuff yourself, you're experienced with that kind of stuff, that could save you some money too. But I think otherwise, yeah, they're fantastic vehicles. I love the whole current Audi lineup, to be totally honest. But the S5 Sportback in particular is great. So yeah, definitely recommend those. Definitely check out the review if you haven't seen it yet for more of my in-person impressions on it, as I'm driving it. But yeah, really love them. And thanks again for the super chat. And PK, thank you so much for the super chat as well. I said, apparently the RS6 outsells the A6 All-Road. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. So I appreciate the info. That's pretty cool. I know they probably don't sell that many RS6s, but I would have assumed it would have been the other way around. So that is really surprising. So it's either really good news for the RS6 they're selling like hotcakes, or really bad news for the A6 that it's selling so badly that a limited production RS6 is selling better. Yeah, it's interesting with those. Not only just the A6 Allroad, but even like the Mercedes E-Class wagons. Like whenever we were talking to our Mercedes dealer back whenever we used to buy Mercedes, and they had a little more of those wagons, they were like, yeah, it's so funny. The wagon E-Class buyers are sometimes some of the richest Mercedes buyers that we get in. He's like, they're the ones that are doing cash deals, that are casual, easygoing. They always seem to be like the richest Mercedes. It's not the G-Wagon buyers. It's not the people buying the AMG GTs. It's the E-Class wagon buyers. They'll drop 80 grand cash on the table, walk away with it, and that's it. So it's kind of funny. So maybe there's less and less of those people, or those people are now just like buying RS6s instead. I don't know, but it's great to hear. I love the RS6, and so if it's actually selling well, that is music to my ears. So thanks for the info there, PK, and thanks for the super chat as well. Let me see, getting back to the member questions. Truck and Car Guy says, that reminds me, also saw a couple of second-gen NSXs this week too. It's been an interesting week. Yeah, sounds like it's been a good week for car spotting for you. That's awesome. Yanel says, hey, Matt, happy Sunday. My brother bought the BRZ and drove it home. That's awesome. I'm glad the deal worked out for him. He said 2013 with manual transmission and the dark blue paint. He absolutely loves it so far. Just drove it myself. What a blast. That's awesome. It's cool he let you drive it as well. But I'm glad to see that there's another happy BRZ buyer out there. I love those things, of course. And yeah, I'm glad it all worked out and he was able to drive it home and all that. So sweet. Another new BRZ on the road. That is always an excellent boost to my day. So thanks for letting me know, and for the follow-up there. Cam Jam says, been to North Dakota during the summer and winter. It feels like two different places depending on the time of year. I could certainly imagine that for sure. And Vishal, thank you so much for a super chat as well there. I don't see a question attached. So if you have a question, please send a message and I'll try and keep an eye out for it there. You don't have to do another super chat if you just didn't put the question in there. But anyway, regardless, thanks for the super chat and the support. I really appreciate it. And thanks for joining on the live stream here. Let me see. Spy Harpy says, I forgot to add, I bought the NSX in Fargo back in 97. I got my 92 red in Portland in 08. Still a good road trip. Yeah, I'm sure. That's awesome. Sounds like you've had quite the fun history of cars here over the past couple of decades. So that's pretty sweet, man. In 97, having an NSX, you must have been, quite the cool person to be cruising around in NSX in the 90s. That's awesome. Raphael says this guy already has the Evora. When the Amira came out, he wouldn't stop talking about it, so now he's getting one. Well, yeah, if you're a loyal Lotus person, yeah, they will have no problems with the Amira, I think. I mean, there's a few compromises. Like it doesn't have the back seat like the Evora does. There's a couple other things that Sophie was mentioning. I don't remember, but I'm sure it's an amazing car. I'm hoping to maybe someday get my hands on one. And two says, hey Matt, are we sure that the 3.4 Toyota engine isn't just a twin turbo 3.4 from the 90s Tacoma? Basement thoughts. Thanks for joining in too. So the 3.4 Toyota engine, I'm trying to remember if you're talking about maybe the 2.4 or 3.4, I don't recall. Are we talking about the Tundra motor? I don't know. I know there's been some people talking about the Tundra motors not being the best or whatever. I don't know if I think they resolved most of the issues that I've heard of. I'm not sure, but anyway, Vishal, I see your comment here now. So sorry I wasn't able to see it with your super chat. But he says, hey man, it didn't let me put a message in. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't let you do that. But he says, I was gonna say I saw a Fisker Ocean on the road the other day. Pretty unique looking car. Wow. I'm guessing you're in California. If you saw one outside of California, then I'm extra impressed that you saw one. But that's cool. It's a good looking car. I have yet to see one in person. But I hope they do well. I wish every new car company all the best, and I don't want to see anyone fail. But it seems like now they're outsourcing production, or they're trying to find other people to produce the vehicles to keep up with, I guess, the goals that they are wanting to keep up with. I don't think there's an enormous amount of demand, but yeah, I'm always open minded. We will see what happens. But I was at the LA Auto Show, and I can't remember who it was, but someone told me they drove the Ocean and it wasn't very polished and it was not kind of ready for prime time, which unfortunately is kind of what my assumption would have been about that. Again, a new vehicle from a new company, probably has some teething issues, but hopefully they're good and they're ready to go. But let me see other member questions here. Doug says, speaking of road trips, do you have any itch to head out on one with the family? We recently did a 3,500-mile road trip out west from St. Louis through some great parks and driving roads. That sounds like an epic trip. I always have the itch to do a road trip. I love road trips, and I always love to do more of them. And that was one of the things I loved whenever I used to do more privately owned car reviews, was getting on the road and doing more road trips. And I'm hoping to, slowly work up to that more and more. I just have less time to do that now than I used to, but I'm hoping to get out and do more. Now, as far as family road trips, that would be fun. Family road trips for us are best kept at shorter road trips, partially just because we have a toddler, and toddlers don't love being in the car for 3,500 miles. That'd be pretty tough for sure. And also with the Mach-E, it certainly adds some extra time there with charging. We could always do a road trip in a press vehicle or something, but as far as, we just don't do a lot of road trips altogether as a family, that we don't really have any need to. Anything that's more than a few hours, it's usually just easier to fly, especially with me flying for all these media drives that I'm on. I have tons of frequent flyer miles, so anywhere that we need to go that's more than a few hours drive, I'm like, let's just hop on a plane because it'll be quicker, and it'll probably actually be cheaper because I can pay for the whole thing with free miles, instead of paying for charging stops or gas fill ups or whatever. So we usually just fly if we're going to go anywhere that's a decent, trip. But I love road trips. I still desperately want to do a cross country road trip someday. And and I'm hoping I may actually be doing a little road trip here in the Bullet this week, very short, but just to film a car review potentially. But I'm always feeling the itch for another road trip. I love being on the road. I love road tripping, especially when it's in the Bullet. It's always a ton of fun. And Rafi says, hi, Matt, happy Sunday. I heard the Bose system in the FL5 in person, and it's so much better than the FK8. Now I want one. It is a really good system, and that new Civic Bose stereo is really so good. And it's so refreshing because Honda had such crap stereos for so long, and to finally have a good stereo in a Honda is really, a nice thing to see too. But Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, they really improved the creature comforts. You know, the infotainment's so much better. There's so many nice improvements with those. But I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe the FL5 markups have kind of gotten a little bit better. I could be wrong, but I would assume that by now most of the diehard people willing to pay markups have already gotten theirs. I don't know, maybe not. I'm sure Honda dealers and dealers in general just there's no end to the greed. But I'd like to stupidly think that maybe a few of them have softened up on their prices. But I don't know. I'd love to hear if any of you have any feedback. If you've, excuse me, seen any recent prices for Type R's, I'd love to know if they're coming down to reality at all. And let me see. Doug says the road trips by Everyday Driver and Gears and Gasoline made me want to do one. What a blast! Yeah, and that's also not only is it like a road trip is obviously a lot of time, a lot of work, and all that as well. But whenever you do good road trip videos like those guys do, I mean that is a lot of work as well. And it's every time I've done like a little road trip, even if it's been something that has been like mildly interesting, I'm like, oh, maybe this would actually be kind of cool to cover. Like actually covering a road trip well, in my opinion, and like having a good story and just compiling it well it seems like an enormous challenge, at least to me. So I have a ton of respect for people that make good road trip videos on YouTube, because I think it's something that's really tough to do. And let me see. Jordan says, hey, Matt, with the popularity of the Maverick and the Santa Cruz, do you think Subaru should bring back the Baja? Absolutely. I don't know why we don't already have a new Baja. Like it's a no-brainer. It always strikes a nerve with me with Subaru, because they just, in one case, it's like they want to sell out and just, do whatever it is that prints the most money. But then whenever they're presented with easy, clear opportunities to print money, they like don't take those easy, low-hanging fruit chances. So I don't know. Yeah. A Baja would be easy. Either hack the back end off of an Ascent or the back end off of an Outback like they did last time and call it good. And I think even that would sell well enough. If you want to make something really, super competitive with a Maverick, then you'd have to probably get a little more creative than that. But I think honestly, just doing that would be fine. I think Subaru has some really good ideas sometimes. They're poorly timed. I mean, the Baja is basically a Maverick, but no one was into it 15 years ago. Now it's the coolest thing ever. I think Subaru, they're kind of like GM in that way, where they kind of have a crystal ball sometimes. And it's like they are almost freaky with how good they predict the future, but then they just get the timing way off. And then it ends up being a total blunder because it was just born in the wrong time. And I think the B9 Tribeca was another case of that. I was just thinking about this just yesterday. It didn't click in my head until like basically yesterday that if you look at the last generation Kia Sportage, the headlights, at least to me, are almost identical to a B9 Tribeca. And the B9 Tribeca, if you remember when that first came out from Subaru, a 3-row crossover, whenever that still wasn't super common. You didn't have anything from Kia or Hyundai really that was, that kind of thing. The B9 Tribeca came out, everyone thought it was hideous. And now you have essentially the same front end on the Sportage. I mean, the grill's different, but as far as like the headlights being up high on the grill and all that, or on the fenders, like that was like a trend that we now have been seeing in the past, 5 years or so. But like Subaru did it way back then. Everyone hated them for it. And, just like the Baja had its niche following, but like it never really did well. But it it's one of those things that should have. And now we have like the Toyota Crown, a lifted sedan. Guess what Subaru did 20, 25 years ago? Lifted legacy sedans called the Legacy SUS, Sport Utility Sedan. They did that 30 years ago. They saw the writing on the wall that, hey, maybe there's going to be like old people that want a sedan but don't want to bend over into a car, or they want to pretend like they're doing something rugged. Here you go. Here's a lifted sedan. No one bought them, and it was an utter failure for Subaru. And now here we are. I mean, we'll see how the Crown pans out. It doesn't seem like it's a wild success yet either. But again, we're trying this idea again that Subaru tried 30 years ago or whatever. And it's like, Subaru has moments of brilliance that are just poorly timed. And then whenever it's time for them to be like, oh, now the trend is happening, they're too hurt or like, gun shy from the last time that it failed, that they like stay away from the idea when they shouldn't. And they should be like, aha, now everyone wants a Baja. Hurry up. Let's, hack the back end off an Outback and ship it out. And they're not doing that. They should have done that 2-3 years ago. And anyway, I digress. But yes, 100% Subaru should bring back the Baja and a few other things as well. But thanks so much for the message there, Jordan. And Joel says, hey, Matt, I missed Saul. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. I just saw that just came in. thank you so much for the generosity. He says, test drove a GT manual, but read MT82s aren't as reliable. Would you suggest to go 10-speed for reliability or save for the dark horse of the Tremec? Because at those prices, I'm torn between the dark horse and the base C8. So, I don't, I guess we'll see with the slight bit of extra power from the 2024 Mustangs if the MT82 is a little more stressed. In my Bullet, it's been fine. I think that the original MT82 complaints, now they had their teething issues when they first came out in the 2011s or whatever, when the 5.0 was brand new and, there was some stuff there to work out. But these days, there's been some people that are still, on the hate train for the MT82, just even for the S550 generation. It's not the best transmission if you're going to drag race. If you're going to drag race and beat the crap out of it, yeah, go for the automatic. If you are, if you're really a manual snob, not in like a condescending way, but if you really love if it's only like good manuals or nothing to you, then maybe skip the MT82 because the shifter feel isn't great. The clutch pedal kind of sucks. I mean, I don't love the manual setup in the Bullet. I love that it is a manual, but it's far from the best manual. I'll admit that, very readily. But it is a manual, and it's a good manual. It's not as good as the Tremec. The Tremec is much better. It's just going to come down to, I guess, I think some people also say that if you do a short shifter, that can help a little bit with the feel. And if you've changed the fluid, that'll help. I mean, my personal experience with the MT82 for 5 years in the Bullet, and then for the other, when it was the other, like 3 or 4 years in the other S550 Mustangs that I had it in, it was fine. In the Bullet, it locked me out of second gear a couple of times. I can count on one hand the amount of times it's locked me out of second. At redline, like a 7,500 RPM, banging into second, like it's locked me out of that a couple of times over 5 years and basically 20,000 miles of driving. Is that a deal breaker? Maybe for some people it is. For me, it certainly isn't. I really think the MT82 isn't bad. Now, I don't know if you have a chance to drive an MT82 or if you've driven one yet or not. I would definitely test drive one, even if you can't get it in 24. Go drive anything from 2015 and newer, preferably something with lower miles so it hasn't been, beat up too badly. But, the newest MT82 you can find, test drive it, see how it feels to you. I think that'll be the best judge. The Tremec is definitely better. The clutch pedal feels better in those. I'm not sure how adamant you are on getting a 24, because if you want to get a 24 GT priced vehicle with a Tremec, I just covered the Mach 1. It's a great solution because you can get a Mach 1 now for low 50s or high 40s with the Tremec, and you're down I guess 20 horsepower compared to the Dark Horse. And it was at 7 horsepower. Was it 485, 47 in the new GTs with the active exhaust? But it's the same power. It's the same engine. It's the same platform pretty much. Quicker steering in the S650s and a couple other things. Again, it's subjective. If you like the new interior, if you like the new styling, and you want the newest thing, totally understand going for the 24s. But just wanted to offer that as well. If you want to Tremec, just get a Mach 1, and you have all the same goodness for the most part as well. But yeah, I don't think MT82 deserves all the hate it gets, if I'm totally honest. Again, you can go on the Mustang forums and read a variety of opinions on them. If you want to have a more well-rounded opinion of that transmission, don't take my word for it. Like I said, definitely test drive it, see what other people think. But I personally don't think it's that bad. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. Definitely feel free to ask any follow-up questions. You said I buy new with the 24. Yeah, so, you may actually be able to find, I've seen there's a couple new 23 Mach 1s around as well, so I'm not sure if it's just that you want the new financing or, the better rates there for a new vehicle or what, but if you definitely want the 24, yeah, I'd test drive it, but I think it should be fine. Again, depending on how you feel about it. Reliability wise, I haven't seen any of them really blowing up anymore, unless you're talking about drag racing and stuff like that. It's just that they don't feel the best, but I haven't seen them grenading themselves or anything. So I think from a reliability standpoint, especially, you shouldn't have to worry about the transmission failing on you. It should be fine. It's just not going to feel the best. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. And thanks so much, Saul, for the super chat there. Getting back to the member questions here. Let me see where we left off. So Joel says, hey, Matt, most studies show that cars contribute between 10 to 20% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Any reason why almost nothing's being done about reducing the 80% factories, electricity production, et cetera? I guess this gets this is a little bit controversial, so I'm not going to get super into this question too much, but I guess my opinion is that it's not that there isn't anything being done with the other stuff. There's a lot of progress. If you look, I mean, solar and wind alone, it's like shocking how fast the rate of adoption has become for wind and for wind and solar. And it's just the fact that everyone's demand for electricity is going up so much faster that the growth in solar and wind is not keeping up with that. So that's why, especially in other countries where they don't have a huge mix, like China, for example, they're adding on more of the fossil fuel powered production facilities for electricity because they just need to keep up with their super fast growth rate for electricity demand. But in a lot of other places, it is a ton of renewables there. So that has dropped. Like the UK, they have an energy surplus in green energy right now, where they have more green energy than they're actually using. So like they've dropped their greenhouse gas emissions as far as the factories, for electricity production at least. And, and I think that's why regulation is really important as well, to make sure that these corporations don't have carte blanche to just do whatever they want and pollute however they want. They need to be held accountable as well. I think that it's great to see that they're, trying to also curb other commercial, whether it's commercial vehicles or, trying to, clamp down on other things, whether it's like airlines. I mean, that's one of the worst polluters right now is all these jets that, I'm contributing to as well. I'm jetting back and forth across the country, once or twice a month at least. That's terrible for greenhouse gas emissions. So trying to do those types of things that bring it down is also very important. And those are things that are happening. It's just it's a low-hanging fruit, I think, with cars, because cars are relatively safe. Electric vehicles have already been proven, and that's already a familiar technology for a lot of people. If I think a lot more people will be freaked out about an electric plane or something like that, because then you're dealing with life and death there, because it's, you're really depending on that powertrain to make sure you don't fall out of the sky. So there's some other, reasons why other, I think, industries haven't, jumped on the electric thing as fast as the car things. But I think, energy production is getting better really fast. There's stuff going up everywhere, even in places that aren't super into, like West Virginia's coal country, and even West Virginia's adding big solar arrays and, adding in a lot of green stuff as well. So there's definitely progress being made there. I guess it just comes down to what you're seeing out there as far as, where you get your news from and how you're following stuff. And I know there's always conflicting stories and, different studies that paint things in different lights and stuff. But I think that there's a concerted effort around the world to reduce emissions in all the ways they possibly can. Just some stuff can happen faster than others. But let me see here. Two was talking about the Tundra as far as the 3.4. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's an all-new motor, but I could be wrong. Cam Jump says, have you heard and seen videos about the VinFast VF8? It looks cool, but from what I've seen, it's just another brand rushing out an EV. VinFast, there was, whenever they did the media drives, I don't remember if that was early this year or late last year, they did media drives, and I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the website that did the funniest review. It might have been, I think it was The Drive. I could be wrong. Anyway, the media, if you just look up media reviews for whenever they first drove the VinFast last year, it was not ready for prime time, and it was bad. Like, it was like old school, like 80s rattly, like beer can kind of build quality. And it was just like, is really a dumpster fire of a media drive from what I've heard. Maybe they've gotten better. I sure hope so. It seems like they have tons of money to hopefully figure everything out. And the financiers of VinFast are really adamant that it is going to succeed, and they will spare no cost to make sure that happens. So we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I haven't seen anything outside of California still. It's a very limited amount of sales, I think, still, and, probably a very limited amount of demand as well. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think, all these startups probably have slightly better luck right now than they probably did even 6 months ago, just because Tesla's continuing to drive away customers. And so, I think that there's a lot of people that are now looking outside of Tesla for the first time ever for an EV. And so that obviously helps everyone. Also, the legacy manufacturers that now have great products as well to compete. But some people that might actually be okay going for one of these new startups, or something like Tesla that maybe rode the Tesla train for a while and now went off of the Tesla bandwagon with the way it's going. I think maybe some of those people could go over to the VinFast and the Fiskars and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I always wish new companies all the best, but I'm not holding out hope for VinFast very much. I'd love to see them succeed, but they got a long road ahead of them, I think. And two says, nah, red agenda, Russian theme plays. Kyle, shut that off. Two, you're funny. Yeah, it's I saw someone else said green agenda. I'll just leave that one there. But so I guess there's someone's talking about having trouble with watching. So yeah, refreshing. Hopefully YouTube's not letting us down here with the streaming again this week, but hopefully it's all been good. And Joel says, speaking of road trips, I did one road trip in October and another this month, total of about 3,000 miles. It's so much fun. That's awesome. I'm so jealous of everyone that gets to do these long road trips. I would desperately love to do a long trip like that. It's and honestly, like, it's funny. Like, I wish there was like more jobs that allowed you to just drive long distances. Because aside from like trucking and stuff, which I'm not much of a trucker myself, I'd be too terrified to drive something that massive. But yeah, it'd be great to like have a job where you actually get to drive a lot, because working from home here is not great because I don't get to drive very much at all. And then road trips, they're just like, yeah, not very common. I get to do some fun drives on the media drives that we go on, where they have little short road trips for us in the vehicle we're reviewing and stuff, but it's never super far. But it'd be fun to do a long one someday. And my buddy, he's in the military and he's often doing like these cross-country moves and stuff. And I told him, like, one of these days I'll try and carve out a week or two to do a road trip with him whenever he's doing another move across the country at some point. But it's just, and he actually did one this past year, and I try to find a way. It's just like, there is no possible way for me to take a week or two off. It's just like, that's one thing people don't realize with being a YouTuber, and even just being self-employed in general. Unless you have a long buffer, you have a really relaxed business. But with YouTube, like, even for Thanksgiving, people are like, oh, well, at least you get a day off for Thanksgiving. It's like, no, I don't. Like, my only way I was able to carve out time to hang out with family on Thanksgiving was that I had to work double time the day before, where I had to, in my case, I just basically worked late nights leading up to that, so that I was able to, like, carve out enough free time, basically making up that 8 hours that I lost on Thanksgiving. And it's the same thing if I were to take a week-long vacation. Like, that means for probably the 3 weeks before that, I have to work extra overtime, build up a longer, buffer there, and just put out extra videos that'll be queued up for that week that I'm away. It's not like I can just drop everything and not upload for a week, because that just kills the algorithm. And I'm not in a position to just not post videos, because it's what I depend on for a living, and I don't get a ton of views, so I can't afford to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna take a break. There's some YouTubers that do that, and I'm so just like, oh yeah, I was really burned out, and so I just decided to like take a break for a few months. I'm like, man, that is a nice luxury to have, to just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna like not make money for a few months and be fine. Like, I'm not that well off, unfortunately. But yeah, one day I'll do some more road trips. That Bullet is just aching for more miles. It irks me. It only has 20,000 miles on it. I want to put more on it. I think the original goal, I wanted to have 100,000 miles by at some point. I'd love to do hundreds of thousands of miles in that car someday, but we'll see what happens. And Cam Jam says, I did see for the first time this week a white FL5. Definitely a lot of road presence with that wing. Yeah, and also the wide body in those just looks so good. Doug says, have you heard any news about a upcoming 4Runner? I have not. I do know that, obviously there's no more debuts here really for the rest of this year. So it's definitely gonna be something next year, unless they, surprise us with something online. But as far as 4Runner, I think 4Runner, if I had to guess, it's gonna be a pretty predictable thing. I'm guessing, it's always been kind of sharing some stuff with the Tacoma. Excuse me. So I would just assume Tacoma with a cab on the back of the truck bed essentially is what you can roughly expect. I'm sure styling will be a little bit more unique. I'm sure that you'll have some stuff that maybe doesn't carry over, but I'm hoping like the manual transmission carries over from the Tacoma. I hope the engines carry over. But if if I were a betting man, as far as that whole thing goes, I would just say, it's going to probably most likely just be Tacoma with the cab on the back and a few other little changes. I could be wrong. Maybe they will go more extreme and make it a real like Wrangler competitor and make it boxy and crazy looking or something like that. But I think, especially now with Land Cruiser in the mix and stuff, I think they, really need to make sure that 4Runner is cheap. And the best way to make 4Runner cheap so that it doesn't, step on the toes of Land Cruiser is to, just make sure that it's based on Tacoma, has a low starting price like Tacoma, and, just is, something that's, good. I mean, I don't think pricing's been out for Tacoma yet, but I mean, you look at current Tacoma pricing and current 4Runner pricing, like they got to keep it there. I think they really limited themselves with Land Cruiser. I think if you have, high pricing for 4Runner, it's just going to be like everyone's going to go get the Land Cruiser now, so I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for 4Runner. They've really crammed in the models there with the rugged stuff from the Toyota SUVs there, so we will see. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing is how they play pricing on 4Runner, and if they're going to price it the same as Land Cruiser, then how do you differentiate it? That'll be tricky, so we will see. And Newt said, I saw a Crown yesterday and was shocked at the ride height. Yeah, they really went for it. It is actually nice and high. And I think the Toyota person, whenever I was filming the new Crown Signia at the LA Auto Show, they were like, it's basically the same step-in height. The sedan and this SUV are the same. Like it is really high for sure. And Joel says, Matt, do you think Toyota will increase the interior volume of the Prius? I would buy one in a heartbeat if the interior volume is at least the same as the outgoing one. Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the compromise with the new Prius is, less headroom, less hatch space. And it's unfortunate. I think they learned their lesson as far as trying to add on other variants with the V and the C versions. So I think, their solution now is just, since they basically have the same kind of hybrid powertrain, obviously less efficiency, but same kind of thing in all the other models, that are in the same realm with Toyota there. I think that, what they would say is if you wanted a Prius, but it's just not big enough, if you want just more interior space, you go get a Camry hybrid now. Or if you want to have, the extra hatch capability, then you go and get a Corolla Cross hybrid. And so they have kind of workarounds just within the lineup with other models to kind of suggest to people instead. And so I think that, that's kind of the answer for Toyota, for as far as from Toyota side, if you're, depending on how you feel, if you don't have enough headroom, get a Corolla Cross hybrid, very similar pricing and all that. Again, same kind of performance, same powertrain, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of, the answer there. But I know the Prius has a lot of appeal for sure. And, we will see if they add, more models or something. But I think that's basically the best you're going to be able to get there. It's unfortunate you can't get another hatch sedan, outside of a Corolla, but, and I mean, that also does have the hybrid as well. So, I mean, there's other options, I guess, is the bottom line there. But I don't think that Toyota will ever grow the Prius, because then again, you're stepping on the toes of the Camry. If you increase the hatch space too much, then you're stepping on the toes of the Corolla Cross. So I think, again, Toyota, they're really filling every niche, but that means there is no room for variation with any of these models, they have, because they have so much stuff now that there's no room for anything to really grow outside of, I guess, the Camry, which, since they don't have anything above that sedan-wise. But even that, you get the Camry too expensive, then everyone just goes and buys a Lexus ES. So there's, they don't have much space to move around in Toyota. Truck and Car Guy says, I'm not a fan of the new front end on the Sportage, just a mess of lights and weird angles. It's definitely busier for sure. Let me see. Sorry, I just reloaded comments. I gotta find my place again here. Where was I? So Austin says, hey, Matt, I'm thinking about the 2022 and up Audi S3 for my next car. Talk me and my wallet out of it. I guess it comes down to exactly what you are looking for out of the S3 and why you're considering it. I mean, the easy way to go cheaper is to get a Golf R. Although I do have to say that the transmission tuning was much better in the S3. It didn't have at least the one that I had, it was a year or two ago, but the S3 that I had didn't have the hypermiling tendencies of the transmission that the Golf R had that really annoyed me if you watched my recent week with the Golf R, with the DSG. But, I love the S3, so I can't help you there. I mean, it's a really good little car. But it's expensive for what it is. If you want 300 horsepower and you want, 4 doors and some kind of luxury, I mean, I would say that also like an Integra Type S is fantastic. Again, different car, it's an Audi versus an Acura, and you have a manual versus a dual clutch and stuff. So I could probably talk to you for an hour about this, Austin. So I won't go off into the weeds here too much, but I'll just say that S3 is a great car. It's not the most bang for your buck. You probably already knew that. So, but aside from that, I think it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think they look great. The tech's great. I love the Audi interiors. And I mean, I really love the S3, and I think it's, it is towards the top of my list if there was something in that kind of price range. And I also, if you want, I can chime in with my other options, but I'm assuming you probably don't want other ideas to contemplate on top of your S3 dilemma there. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff at that price point, but I do love the S3. It'd be one of my probably top picks if I wanted something that small at that price point with all-wheel drive and an automatic, and a luxury brand. I guess that would probably be one of the top picks for sure. Wheatman says the old Jeep Cherokee also had those high mount daytime running lights back in the day. Very true. And I have to admit, I was one of the haters of the Jeep Cherokee when it first came out with those headlights. I was like, these are hideous. Why do they do this? I hated it like many other people. And then literally every single other car company said, you know what? We need to copy that. There's so much hate, but this is the future. And that's what happened. And now it is exactly the future, and everyone does it. It's so funny. I mean, thankfully, other companies have made it look better than the Cherokee. But I mean, these days, the Cherokee is pretty tame and doesn't look as offensive as it did to my eyes, at least, whenever those first came out. It's kind of funny how that works, But anyway, Saul says, it'd be my first manual. Used to drive a 250cc Ninja motorcycle. I'll be using it to commute mostly. So I will say, Saul, if it's your first manual and you're not super good at driving a manual transmission car, a Mustang is not a good choice for a first-time manual driver. It's really tricky. The clutch has a weird spring in the clutch pedal, and even when you remove it, which some people like to do, it still isn't a good clutch feel. You're going to be rough with the transmission. I mean, it has all the rev matching downshifting, so that at least helps you a little bit. But between that and then the shifter not being, the best, I mean, if you want a real good manual, unfortunately, the Mustang is not where it's at. I think the Camaro has a better feeling manual transmission, but even like the Challenger one's not the best either. So yeah, it wouldn't be my pick for a first-time manual driver. It's not an unsurmountable challenge, but it's going to be a challenge. And it might be a little frustrating for the first few weeks there, learning it. But, once you get used to it, also, I don't know how your commute is. If you sit in a lot of traffic, that could sway you towards the automatic as well. Because, manuals and traffic aren't fun, especially the Mustang manual. Because again, that clutch is not the lightest and it just feels weird. Again, it's livable. I've lived with it now with, my 4 S550 Mustangs for basically 9 years now. But, it's not ideal for a first-time manual driver. So I'll just throw that out there. But Doug says, I have a 2017 Mustang GT with a Roush tune in that MT82. It will lock you out going into third at high RPM. The tune gives it a 7,500 RPM redline, and the manual transmission can't do it, or the MT82 can't do it. And I mean, it does do it in the Bullet. I mean, I do take that car to redline a decent bit. I just did it again this week, and there was no lockout issues, for me. I don't know if I've done a $7,500 or 7,500 RPM shift into third. What speed would that be? I mean, I've probably done it once or twice, but I usually don't go into triple digits in the Bullet. I feel like you're probably almost a triple digits at the top of third in the MT82. I don't remember. But yeah, I don't frequent that gear very often in 7,500 RPMs, but that's great insight. So thanks so much, Doug, for chiming in there. He says, it's a good car overall. I love it. So yeah, I think that's the bottom line. There's still a good take rate for the manual Mustangs. People live with them, even if it's not the best manual. It still is a manual, and that's something that should be, enjoyed still nonetheless. And Rafi said, I also went to the LA Auto Show last week, and I felt that there were a good amount of manufacturers not present. Do you think these auto shows are slowly becoming less popular? Absolutely. I mean, yeah, Stellantis pulled out last minute, with Dodge and Ram and all that stuff. So yeah, they are becoming less and less popular. I mean, here in Pittsburgh, it's been just reduced to dealers just showing up with cars. Sometimes there will be like a press car at the auto show. or there will be, maybe you'll get lucky and get one or two concepts that are just making the auto show rounds, but it's really just, it's pretty dead these days. I mean, it's still good the dealers show up because it gives you a chance to interact with a car outside of, the pressures of a dealership, but they still even have salespeople typically at these, at least the Pittsburgh auto show. So it kind of still gives you like a weird feeling sometimes. So, I mean, I think auto shows, especially even like with, Hyundai this week just announcing that they're going to start selling cars through Amazon next year. And that's like, kind of where we're headed, where people aren't even test driving cars anymore, or they're at least not tire kicking as much as they used to. They literally they can order and complete the entire purchase through Amazon and then have them either go to the dealer and pick it up or have the dealer bring it to them. And I think test drives are important still, but I think they're less important than they used to be, because I think most cars these days, if you take it on a test drive, I mean, there's certainly a few exceptions, and it will come down to your personality type and, how you feel about different things. But I would say that for the vast majority of people, test driving a modern 2024 model year vehicle in, a 5-mile test drive with a salesman breathing down your neck, or even if you go in it by yourself, I mean, I don't think you're going to have any huge revelations. You'll probably realize, okay, I have a good sitting position or I don't, or I have good visibility or I don't. But as far as like powertrains and handling, like everything handles fine these days. Everything has enough power these days. We're not talking about 20 or 30 years ago where it's like, oh boy, well, they didn't screw this one together very well. Like, I mean, all the quality standards are pretty tight these days on most stuff. Obviously there's some exceptions and this isn't, 100% true all the time, but it is becoming less and less important. I think same thing as for auto shows, where I think it's a good way to, get a feel for a car and hit a bunch of different cars all on the same day. And so that's why I think they will continue to exist on a dealer level. But I think from a manufacturer standpoint, it just doesn't make sense. I think when you look at the behind the scenes of the cost, it's millions of dollars for the fancy, like big auto show displays with, that are 3 stories tall with the backdrops and, all this kind of stuff. That's all millions of dollars. And when they just did the math, they learned this during COVID times. They can fly, however many of us journalists that they think it's worth bringing out. I mean, every company is different. If you're a Toyota, it could be 100 people. If you're, a smaller company or a tighter budgeted company, it could be a few dozen people, and you fly them to some swanky place and you do a little debut with them. You get the same coverage. And for us that are covering the vehicles, it's less stressful because we have dedicated time with the vehicle. We're not having to elbow every single person with a pulse that was able to get a media badge for these media shows. It's more exclusive. So you have, a better opportunity. And it saves the car companies tons of money for getting basically the same exposure. Because I mean, are they going to be upset if the random person with 200 followers isn't there to cover it? Like that doesn't make a dent for them, so as long as they get the big fish to cover it, on a separate, launch event, like that's all they need. So they've learned, like, why are we spending millions on this stuff when we can spend a few $100,000 instead to fly a bunch of these people to, a place for a day and that's it. It's just a no brainer from a money standpoint to just do offsite dedicated things and that's it. And some companies will be, good sports and do both. Like Toyota, again, has money to burn. They brought 110 journalists out for the debut of the Camry and the Crown Signia. And then, they also did a nice auto show display as well, but not everyone's got the pockets that Toyota has. So it's, I think it'll just come down to, at the end of the day, there'll be the companies that have the money to burn that will be able to do it. But it's really going to continue to just dwindle, and it's sad, but it's just the way things are going. Those days are just behind us. And it's also, I think they did it themselves a little bit as well, because you have embargo times that, embargoes dropping at midnight, or you have off-site things in the same venue as the auto show. I mean, like, Toyota showed off Subaru showed off the Forester, like, the night before or whatever. Honda did the same thing for the Ioniq 5N, which wasn't new anyway, but they always, like, they spoil their own surprise. It used to be like everyone waited until like 9 a.m. on the auto show day to like pull the wraps off. And that was the first time any of us actually saw it, aside from maybe Motor Trend or one or two other people. But like, that was the way that, and then it started getting looser and looser, and they started having like separate little special things for certain people. And then you had leaks and stuff, and it just ended up falling apart. And so if they would have stuck to the whole, like, no one is going to be allowed to see this until we pull the covers off, on auto show morning, that would, I think, have made the appeal stronger and helped a little bit, but even still probably was a sinking ship. So probably a moot point. But anyway, roundabout answer there, but yes, I think auto shows are definitely on their way out from a manufacturer standpoint. And thanks for the hearts there and the support. So Doug says the best way to go green is to start buying used cars. There's certainly, a lot of truth to that. Instead of increasing the demand for new cars, buying used is definitely the way to be green about it, for sure, because it's already been out there, it's already been produced. And I think Engineering Explained has a great video about like when you should buy a new car or when you should upgrade your car to something newer, and he kind of does a really good breakdown. I can't remember the name of the video, but if you just look at like buying used is greener or something on his channel, it's really a fascinating. He like crunches the math of like, here's how bad of fuel economy you have to get in order to be greener to buy something newer and all that. But yes, whoops, my camera there. I caught it though. All right, I think we're good. But anyway, so yeah, that's a good point there for sure, Doug. And let me see, where was I here? So Jordan says, do you, sorry, too, I missed your super chat. It just popped in here. I said, what, didn't I make an Amazon car joke in March about crappy delivery times? The basement delivers. Yeah, you're a pioneer there too. I mean, and it makes a ton of sense. Honestly, yeah, I mean, a lot of us wanted that for a long time, just being able to buy a car on Amazon, but it seems like that is actually something that will be a reality if you're a Hyundai buyer next year. We'll see how well it actually works out. I have a hard time believing that they can manage the paperwork finance side of buying a car as smoothly as putting in a credit card number, for anything else on Amazon. So we'll see. But yes, that is actually something that's happening. And thanks for the super chat too. But getting back to the other member questions here that I missed earlier. So where was I? So Jordan says, do you think Mazda will ever come off the high horse of rebranding with the luxury thing and go back to its origins of Zoom Zoom? I don't think so. Simply because the CX-90 is doing really well for them. Their rebrand in their eyes has started to become a success, and they think that they really have something here with this rebrand. And I think they are doubling down. That's why there's the new rumors now of us getting a new Mazda 6, not because sedans sell well. I heard straight from the chief powertrain guy here in the States for Mazda when I was on the CX-90 launch at the beginning of this year. He was like, yeah, you want a new Mazda 6? Tell people to go buy sedans. No one buys them, so that's why we're not making it. Now, since then, I think the CX-90 has done really well, and I think the higher-ups in Japan have been like, well, yeah, like we might not sell a ton of them, but this also furthers our rebranding of being a luxury brand, because what all the luxury brands have? Sedans. What does Mazda not have? A sedan outside of the Mazda 3, which, is, I guess you could say, like an A3 competitor, but, you want a big sedan if you want to actually be a luxury competitor, so I think they're justifying it for the appearance sake, more so than the actual like business case of it. So I think actually it'll work out for enthusiasts. We'll get a new sweet sedan. Now it might be expensive and it might not be, as sporty as we're all hoping, at least from a handling standpoint, but at least it'd be cool to see, if we get that platform, it's going to be sporty no matter what. If we get the CX-90 platform, rear-wheel drive based thing with a turbo inline-6 engine, and you put it in a sedan, I think a lot of people will be very excited about that. But I think Mazda, for some reason, seems to be ashamed of the Mazda speed days and the Zoom Zoom thing. And it's just, they've chosen to go a different way. It is what it is. Thankfully, Toyota and other companies have filled the void here, but it's just unfortunate that they've kind of abandoned it. I mean, I really think they can have both things. What do you see from all these luxury brands they want to compete with? They all have performance arms. You have your M's, you have your AMGs, you have even Type S with Acura and stuff. So I mean, I would assume that Mazda would be like, yeah, we could, they have the bones with this awesome platform. Why not give it a spin and do, I don't think they'd use the Mazda Speed name because that seems a little, I guess, chintzy for a luxury brand maybe, but, they could do something, I don't know what they would call it. I'm not going to try and brainstorm names here for a new Mazda performance arm, but, they could do something else. And, I think that would also fit in with the luxury branding. So I think that's something that comes later on down the road once they have all the core models established. But, I think that could be where this new RX-9 or whatever comes into play in a few years. Things like that could certainly help. And, maybe even do like a more luxurious version of the Miata. to kind of be like, hey, look, we got an expensive, SL competitor or something like that too, to see. But I think there's no turning back for Mazda at this point. And I think they actually do have something going for them. I think people are really impressed with the new Mazda interiors. It is very luxurious for a pretty good price. And I think I think they're executing it well, in my opinion. The trend car, guys, is a lot of wind or solar is dependent on the climate. Here in Arizona, solar is huge, whereas wind is basically non-existent. Yeah, and that's the great thing about having a mix is, having stuff that works for different places. There's not a one size fits all solution, really, and so I think it's great that we can custom tailor that stuff for the climate and be the most efficient with our energy production there. Let me see. So Mike says, which Japanese brand do you think isn't taking EVs seriously enough? I understand the market is lagging, but we know EVs will eventually explode. I feel Honda isn't taking them seriously enough. I think when you look at I think it's kind of funny how the tables have turned with, Toyota being the progressive one with the hybrids, introducing, mainstream hybrids essentially with the Prius, 25 years ago or so. It's interesting that now they have kind of fallen behind, I think, but they're more conservative companies. They're less willing to take risks. And so I think that, there is something to be said for the conservative approach as far as, taking it safely with just doing the hybrids. People love hybrids right now and cranking that out. And I mean, it also makes a lot of sense too. I actually really side with Toyota's viewpoint on this currently, and Tu's going to yell from the mountaintops that I'm a shill, but I really think they make the most sense because even we were on the Prius Prime launch this past spring, and they're like, with the battery materials we have, we can either make one BZ4X or something like that, or we can make 8 Prius Primes. And I drove the Prius Prime for a week, charged it up, every night. 42 miles of range or something like that. That's an EV. And I think that's the great thing is, and this is also what Ram's doing with the Ram Charger, I think, where I think people will learn that they don't actually need a ton of range, but you need to experience that for yourself for at least for some people to get over that mental hurdle of like, oh no, I'm limited. But people will realize like, you're not really limited because you don't ever actually do what you say you're doing as far as, aside from a few of you here that do 3,000 mile road trips, most people will be totally fine, with an EV. But regardless, I think that, it makes more sense. You put out 8 Prius Primes instead of 1 BZ4X. And you have 8 people now that are basically doing all of their commuting, because very few people drive more than 42 miles a day. All of your driving electrically, and you're getting 8 people electrified for the same materials as one driver with a BZ4X, or fill in the blank for any other EV you want. And so, if your goal is actually to reduce emissions, plug-in hybrids are realistically the fastest way to get there. It's the most responsible from, the materials standpoint. It's better from a cost standpoint. It's better from a comfort standpoint, especially for Americans who drive longer distances than Europeans that, don't do these, huge excursions like we do here in the States because they don't have as much land mass to cover. So I feel like plug-in hybrids are still just the best solution. And I think they will be the best solution for a long time, especially. And it's a great buffer to, allow the early adopters to go through the teething issues here with the, charging network and stuff, and let those people have the EVs. And, for some people, it doesn't bother them. Like, I'm a planner. We have our Mach-E. To me, I love planning out every one of my stops and, researching each charging station ahead of time to make sure that it's a quality station that's not going to let me down. That's something I don't mind. Other people, they don't want to plan. They fly by the seat of their pants. They don't want to have to worry about that. I can totally appreciate that as well. So, I think it makes sense to let those people, people like myself, get the kinks worked out of the EVs while everyone else is comfortable with the plug-in hybrids for the next decade or so, and then, have people switch over if they need to. But I think plug-in hybrids could still be great for decades to come because, again, everyone's still driving an EV essentially. They're just not admitting it because they're, I still have a gas engine, but you never turn it on because you're never driving more than 40 miles, and that'll just get better and better. And this is like Toyota's plan has been like, they've been talking with, some of these reports and stuff, how like, they are going to have better EVs that have 600 miles of range for people who want that, but they're also going to have better battery tech is going to go into the plug-in hybrid. So you're going to have, plug-in hybrids with 100 miles of range, and then you're never going to use the gas engine for sure, aside from, again, that one time a year, the 1 week out of the year you drive to the beach. Other than that, you'll never use that gas motor, but they'll have it there still, again, to meet people where they are, because everyone has different anxieties, different comfort levels. And so, I think Toyota's approach of meeting you where you're at, whatever your comfort level is, wherever your infrastructure is like for your area, whatever your needs are you an apartment dweller, are you a street parker, you can't plug in, here's a hybrid. I think instead of trying to do this one size fits all approach, recognize that everyone has different needs and different things and different wants, and offer something for everyone. And I think that's what Toyota's doing. I think, they just need to bolster the EV stuff a little bit, but that's coming too. And once they have a healthy EV lineup as well, plus the plug-in hybrids and the regular hybrids, they're going to be unstoppable. I think it's going to be like literally something for everyone. And, I think there's a lot of power there and a lot of future market share to be had there. And so anyway, another random tangent there, but I think Honda's doing the same kind of thing. So I know you mentioned Honda. I think Honda's kind of just slower with that, but I think they're kind of having the same idea here. Start with the hybrids and really bolster those. I think work yourself into the plug-in hybrids and the electric stuff. And I think it's gonna be the right way long term. I'm way behind. I totally missed there's a bunch of stuff going on here. Man, I got way behind on comments. I apologize, making everyone wait here. Sean, thank you so much for gifting a membership there. PK, thank you so much for the super chat. He says Mazda needs a Halo car. Totally agree. I think that new RX-7 concept we saw will be that, hopefully. Two, thanks for the super chat again. Says last time I yelled, I got chained to the radiator. Yikes. I appreciate the jokes too. And Sean, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, I decided that an EV doesn't work for me, mostly because I can't plug in at home. Totally agree. I actually desperately don't want someone to buy an EV unless it works for your situation. Otherwise, you're just going to be miserable. But he says, I've said it before, you should rent one for a week before you commit to buying one. That certainly makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, that's a great thing. And that's the great thing with like Turo now, but even like, I think, is it Hertz that rents the Model 3s and stuff too? There's a lot of insight that can be gained from just, trying one out for sure, and seeing how it fits with your life. And thank you so much, Truck and Car Guy, for gifting those 5 memberships. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone else there that was able to grab those appreciates it as well. Thank you so much for your generosity, Truck and Car Guy. And sorry, everyone, for the long wait there on those. I'll try and get caught up on the other member questions here, so that we're not too far behind, and try to limit my tangents here. So Truck and Car Guy says, honestly, the interstate is the best part of being a trucker, so long as you don't get too distracted with the tunes and miss your exit. Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully that's not too much of a problem there. And Nate says, cross-country trip is on my bucket list as well. We will get to it at some point. I sure hope so. It's one of those things I'm just hoping it may turn out to actually be a bucket list thing that I do in my golden years. As long as we can still actually physically drive cars whenever I'm like 70 years old or something, but we'll see. I don't think I'll ever retire. As long as I can keep doing this, I love doing it. I'll keep doing it forever, but maybe someday I'll be able to take my foot off the gas a little bit as far as the workload. But Jazz says people don't realize what it is to work for yourself. It's a treadmill. Absolutely. I'm glad you can appreciate it, Jazz. He says, you said if you were not in cars, you might be trading stocks. Volvo is at a 52-week low, and PE is about 8. What do you think? I'd have to look into it to see. I hadn't heard that about Volvo. That's interesting. I think Volvo, that's bizarre. They're at a 52-week low because the EX30, they're already saying like that's sold out. They're, going to try and increase production. They have the ones that are built in China, but now they just added a factory to build it. I believe it was in Germany. Somewhere else is building the EX30 now because it seems like they have a massive hit on their hands. Valuation is really hard to master because it's so fickle and stupid. I think Tesla valuations have been hilariously out of touch with reality for a long time and continue to be. And that's just one example. I'm not beating up on Tesla, but there's a lot of stuff where it's like, I'm like, oh, this stock's going to do great this week or whatever. And then it just does terribly. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. But traders are fickle people. And there's a lot of stuff that's just doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the stock market, unfortunately, sometimes. But yeah, not financial advice. But if Volvo's at a 52-week low, and I know they have some hot stuff coming that everyone's sold out of already, I would assume that would be a good investment. But again, I could be totally wrong, and I'd have to look at it to actually make a good educated opinion, which I'm far from a stock expert either, because otherwise I'd be a whole lot better off here if I was able to supplement my income with stock trading. Maybe someday. I continue to work on it in the background a little bit when I have time, but it's going to be a long road, I think, before I'm making any decent money in the stock market. But Austin says, I'd love to take Route 66 cross country. I love all that old school Americana, and more of it is disappearing. Me too. I would love to get on Route 66. I think I've briefly crossed over it on various events and things, but there hasn't been a whole lot that's really been on Route 66 that I've had a chance to experience. But yeah, I know I really want to do that's kind of what I want to do with the Bullet. Is I want to take the Bullet on a cross country trip, hook up with Route 66 as soon as possible, take it the whole way, at least for one, direction across the country there, head up to San Francisco, retrace the Bullet chase route and do that in the Bullet, and then head back some other fun way. That's kind of the dream trip someday that I would love to do. And I wish, I also whenever I did my Indy 500 video, and I feel that I've mentioned in the past, those adventure videos don't really do very well for me. Unfortunately, it seems like it's really just reviews and updates are really the only two things that kind of connect, unfortunately, with at least the larger audience on this channel. But I'd love to try and justify and be like, hey, let's just do a 2-week road trip series of vlogs or something in the Bullet. It'd just be a ton of fun. It'd be tough to do these days because not doing it with a family and being away that long would be really tough. But man, hopefully someday I can do something like that. And I'm also hoping, we will see, but our daughter's starting to kind of, experiment with different sports, and, maybe there'll be some, if she does any kind of competing down the road, that could be something where you do road trips, for any kind of sports that she does someday. That'd be kind of a fun excuse to be like, oh, well, we got to drive to a tournament. Got to get in the car. And secretly I'll be super excited to be road tripping every weekend to various competitions or whatever. We'll see. See how life goes. But two says, Matt talks about taking a vacation in overtime, coming into the basement to whip us while tying us up to the radiator is your idea of overtime. I thought you only did that when Beth was mad at you. Yikes. Oh man, two, your jokes are getting dark here. Yes, I wish I had I wish my overtime wasn't me just staring at a computer until midnight, but that is often the case. Anyway, Mike says Land Cruiser just feels like it'll overlap the new 4Runner. I really think so too. That's what's really going to be tough is how do they differentiate them? It's really going to be tough. And Newt says stock Golf R tunes are not great. It's almost essential to get a DSG tune, regardless. They're awesome cars. Yeah, it's just Volkswagen's just really taking the fun out of that transmission tune. So I guess getting a tune's the way to go. I hope a DSG tune doesn't hurt your warranty too much, because that's the thing. I like having a warranty and having a car that's just good from the factory, but unfortunately, with the Volkswagens, I guess you just got to go aftermarket if you want to have a good experience there with those. And Joel says, hey Matt, quick follow-up to my previous question. I don't like to sit high in a vehicle because I prefer better handling that comes with the sedans and hatchback. The Corolla Cross is a high seating position for me. Yeah. So in your case, I would probably recommend the new Camry when it comes out, because it's the same powertrain as the Prius, just bigger and heavier, as long as you're okay not having the hatch. But I mean, the trunk is huge in the Camry, so hopefully that would be something that could work for you. Because otherwise, I'm trying to think of other things that could be a decent alternative. But the new Crown crossover. Yeah, but I guess that's also kind of high, like the Corolla Cross. So, yeah, I'd say Camry is probably going to be the play as long as you're okay not having a hatch. Otherwise, Corolla hatch, it's not a big hatch. It's basically just as small as the Prius. It's not much better, but that's the only other thing I can offer. But it just, I guess it comes down to your usage case too. I mean, in my experience with the week I had with the regular Prius and the Prius Prime, yes, it is less space. I'm not sure how tall you are, Joel, but as far as at least me, I didn't feel that cramped in the Prius. It didn't feel that bad. Now, the old one definitely had more space, but it wasn't irksome to me. And then as far as the hatch, that'll come down to, how much do you really pack in the hatch in a current generation or a previous generation Prius. Yes, it's less space, but, with folding the rear seats down and stuff, I mean, it's still not great. I'm not going to be able to justify it totally, but it's still a decent amount of space that unless you're really packing in a ton of stuff all the time, hopefully it wouldn't be too bad. And for road trips and things like that, you can always do a roof box or something if you really wanted potentially. Because the Prius is great. It is really a shame they didn't make it bigger. Because it is so good. With the way Toyota loves doing variations, maybe we will see a new Prius variation. Maybe they will bring back the V or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. There is the new Crown stuff. We'll see if we get into the other new Crown models. Like there's the Crown Cross Sport, I think is what they call it in Japan. There's like 4 or 5 different Crown models, and one of them is kind of like it's still higher off the ground, so it's probably the same problem as a Corolla Cross, but a sportier kind of lower crossover that has a bigger hatch that's probably going to be hybrid and stuff. That could be something as well. I don't know, but I totally get this high seating position. I like sitting nice and low. That's one of the things I love about the new Prius is you do feel like you're really sitting low in it, and it's really fun. 2 says, Matt, while streaming. Oh, 2, you're funny after the stream, Matt. 2, stop telling secrets. Yeah, that's it. There you go. Yeah, the only thing that's bad about my basement is that we have the litter boxes down there. So if you're not a cat fan, that's the only thing that's a little unideal. Otherwise, there's no radiators in the basement, nothing else too spooky in our basement here. Trent Cargo says, if you want to go further back, the R8 was one of the first to have LED daytime running lights, and now even soccer mom SUVs have them. Very true. And I remember, man, when that first R8 came out, I was in high school when those things came out, and that thing just looked like a UFO. It was so futuristic with those LED lights there. Oh man, I remember the first time I saw an R8 in person still. Like that's one of the cars that's like left a mark and like as a core memory for me. Like seeing that for the first time, like whoa, like what a car. Like it was so awesome. And Doug says he's correct. The Mustang and the Spring and the S550 and up is a thing. All of my other clutch cars are much better. Yeah. It's I don't know why Ford. I don't know. I haven't driven a manual S650, so maybe they've improved it. But I really hope they've done something. I guess they just tell everyone to get the Tremec, but it'd be nice if the MT82 was a better experience, and that's something I think it seems like they phoned in with the 24s. We'll see if I ever get a chance to drive a manual 24, but yeah, hopefully they've improved it or will improve it someday. Linda says, good evening. I guess the Mustang manual has changed since 1974. It was easy, but bumper to bumper made me go automatic in 2017. Yes, they used to be better with the communication. I've driven, that's the oldest ones. I've driven the SN95s. I've driven the as far as manuals go, and I've driven the Fox bodies with the manuals. Those are definitely heavy clutches though, so there's that. But as long as the weight wasn't an issue, at least the feel was good in those. But nowadays, yeah, the feel is just not there, and it's just a tricky manual, unfortunately. Austin says, thanks for the response on the S3. I love small cars, even if they aren't best bang for the buck. I can't think of any other vehicles which match the S3 for size, performance, luxury, and tech. Yeah, I think that there's definitely there's other stuff. Yeah, it just comes down like G70. Genesis pops into my head. You get a twin turbo V6, but the automatic's not as good as the S3. But it's similar kind of size, really fun. Also, you can get it rear-wheel drive if you want, in addition to the all-wheel drive. Again, everyone likes different things. There's other things, but I think S3 is really it's a fun little car for sure. And I remember just the crackles and the pops in the S3 and stuff. When I had that car for a week, it was really fun. That was one that I just really felt at home in, and I just didn't want to give it back. I really love small cars too, so it was really a fun week with that one. This is not really like the Golf R looks or interior, to be honest. Plus, I've already had a GTI. Well, then, yeah, I think if you've already had a GTI and you want to step up to something nicer and you have the budget for it, I think the S3 will certainly, be familiar for you if you're used to Volkswagen Group stuff, and be a nice upgrade for sure. So with that extra context, I think, yeah, S3 would probably be a great pick. And this is why context always helps with these kind of questions as well, because, if I know what you came out of or what you need or what you're looking for, then it helps me to give a better recommendation. So if you enjoy the GTI and you're looking to upgrade, I think, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to go to the S3. Raphael says, I test drove every car I've bought except the TRD. That was an order and an allocation, but I've driven a Camry SE, so I knew it would be close. Yeah, it's and a lot of people, yeah, still do insist on test drives, but it just seems like less and less people seem to worry about it as much. But Austin says, I joined late tonight. Did anyone ask Matt about his Black Friday shopping? No Black Friday shopping for me, really. I'm still trying to figure out some shopping stuff. Now, Beth, she always handles all the family shopping stuff for the most part. I give input, but she was on a lot of the Black Friday deals and making sure she got the best deal. She is like one of the best bargain hunters out there. She tracks down the absolute lowest price on anything and is able to, really just come up with deals. Like, I mean, there's like other family members that are like asking for her help because like she finds deals like no one else can find sometimes. It's impressive. So she was, ready to go. And honestly, like what she told me, I mean, it's not like anyone really cares that much about Black Friday shopping, but she's like, it seems like a lot of the deals for some stuff was actually better before Black Friday. Like that first, like as soon as Halloween was over, it was like November 1st, like there was a bunch of deals and some of those were actually better than the Black Friday stuff. But yeah, no Black Friday shopping for me. We'll see. I may make one or two purchases here for Cyber Monday. We'll see what happens. But anyway, let me see. Luke, thank you so much for another super chat here. He says, my brother taught me manual on an '01 Mustang GT with a competition clutch. That thing was a leg workout. Man, yeah, that would definitely. Yeah, I've driven a few of those modded Mustangs with those aftermarket clutches, and yeah, it is insane. It's also really impressive, modern manuals that they deal with that. I mean, it used to be you'd have to have a super heavy clutch in order to like handle the power of like an '01 Mustang, that was modified a little bit. These days we have Hellcats with like nice light clutches, and you have Camaro ZL1s with nice light clutches and stuff. Like that was for some reason not possible even just a couple of decades ago. It's kind of impressive just how much they've improved the tech on, all these manuals here. But yeah, definitely there's been some leg workouts for sure. Some of those Mustangs in the past, especially, and just muscle cars in general. And Rafi says Hyundai and Kia spent the most there for sure. Lots of versions to see at the auto show. Yeah, they had a nice setup for sure. And Kyle said, I didn't test drive my Camaro. Granted, I had one a few years ago, but after watching yours and other reviews on the 8-cylinder, I already had a good idea of what the car presented. Yeah, so that's interesting. I appreciate the feedback on the test drives from everyone. And I think, yeah, that's another thing that plays into it. If you're upgrading from, a prior generation, or you're upgrading from, something from the same generation, but yeah, different engines, things like that, it certainly makes it, less of a stressful thing with the test drive for sure. Not having to worry about that too much. Let me see. See, Guardian's talking about the 2-liter Camaro being underrated. I think it is a great bargain sports car. I agree for sure. I enjoyed the 2.0T that I had for a week several years ago now at this point. The motor was a little peaky. It was just a difference in preference between that was a more traditional turbo setup versus like the EcoBoost has a lot of punch down low. But that doesn't have much top end. The Camaro was kind of the opposite, but it was fun. It's just different flavors, different sides of the same coin, kind of, and yeah, good cars for sure. And Guardian also says I missed the mid 2000s Mazda 6. Yeah, they're such cool cars. You can get them with a manual. You have the Mazda Speed version. There's so much good stuff there. And let me see here. So. Guardian also says I've used Turo twice, definitely worth checking out. Yeah, I actually used them a few years back. I needed a car for just a weekend. I was at a wedding in North Carolina, and that's when I did my review on the Tesla Model S P90D, or is a P100D, one or the other. But yeah, it was a good experience. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. So I'm not sure how they are these days, but glad to hear it was a good experience for you as well, Guardian. And yeah, I've heard pretty good things about Turo, so definitely something worth checking out. Not sponsored, unfortunately, but something worth checking out if you want to test drive a car that isn't in a usual rental fleet and might be kind of hard to get your hands on, at a dealer. And MD Can says, woo, so glad I made it. Just literally got home from a road trip out to Tyrone. Kona ended amazing. 29.5 mpg and very comfy the whole way. Well, congrats on the road trip, and you joined in on the perfect live stream because we've just been talking about road trips a bunch of this live stream, funny enough. So that's awesome. You did a road trip there. Curious how many miles you did there, but glad the Kona ended great for you, and 29.5 mpg is awesome. It's great to see these performance vehicles getting pretty good fuel economy here, and glad it was comfy, and glad it was a good road trip. It's awesome. I know a lot of people probably road tripping just even unwillingly for the Thanksgiving holiday and stuff as well. With, I can't remember. They said, I think, record amount of Americans hitting the roads these, holidays and all that stuff. So I'm sure there's lots of people doing road trips here as we speak, still driving home from their Thanksgiving festivities. But B. Mitchell said, driving on US Highway 2 tomorrow from Minot, North Dakota, Duluth, Minnesota. Great scenic drive, but too much winter right now for the 2019 Mustang GT. I'm sure. So I guess, yeah, there's probably a lot of snow up there. I'm always jealous of people that actually have snow during Christmas time. Like all the songs, like, oh, like it's, the weather outside is frightful. And I'm like, it's 50 degrees here in Pittsburgh. It's not really that frightful. It kind of takes away from the effect of all the Christmas music, this time of year. But yeah, if we're lucky, every once in a while we get a couple of little light, dustings or something. We usually don't get any kind of real snow here in Pittsburgh till January or February, unfortunately. But that's awesome that you're getting some winter weather there. Hopefully it's not too nasty though. And thanks for chiming in, Abby Mitchell, as well. Doug says, I never thought the 4Runner and the Land Cruiser even competed. My fiance loves hers and refuses to get rid of her 2011. I mean, they didn't used to compete. It's just that now the Land Cruiser is, a $50,000-ish thing, not the $90,000-ish thing it used to be. So that Toyota just made that problem for themselves. They could have just been, the same Land Cruiser that the rest of the world gets, but instead they went something different. I love the new Land Cruiser though. I think it's super cool. I love the round headlights, especially on the lower trim there and on the top limited one that they're doing or whatever. But it's just, it was kind of a surprise whenever, they told us like, hey, look, it's going to be, what they say. I think they've only said mid 50s so far, but something in that price range. And it's like, wow, like that's pretty impressive and just awesome again to have something that looks like the GX, but a Toyota version is just great to see. So, but we will see. It just puts 4Runner in a tough spot for sure. And Joe says, hey Matt, if you were to daily a front wheel drive manual sports car in all 4 seasons, what would you go for sub 50 grand new and used? The used is tough because I could go all day as far as stuff, but actually I do have a running list of like cars that if I wanted something, else other than the Bullet, or I wanted to add another car on, like what I would get. So let me pull up my list here of my cars. These are mostly 4-door cars. I'm not sure if you need something 4 doors or not. You said sports cars. So I'm not sure if you're talking just 2 doors, because that really limits you these days as far as front wheel drive, sports cars, 2 doors goes. But as far as favorite stuff for 4 seasons, for 4 seasons, I'd say something definitely with a limited slip diff is what you're going to want. So that is going to limit some of the options. Now, if you're talking front wheel drive, I would say, especially if you do want something that's 2 doors, Veloster N technically is 3. Veloster N is a top pick if you're open to use stuff. I love the Veloster N dearly. It is so much fun, so good, and also pretty affordable. You're up to 50 grand. You can get a nice Veloster N for 25. So I'd say Veloster N is a top pick for front wheel drive stuff. Elantra N is also great too. Again, just a little bit newer, and they have the refresh here coming next year. Another one with a limited slip diff that should be pretty good in the snow as a result. Other front wheel drive stuff. I do love the Civic Si still. It's a great car. And the only problem there is you don't have adaptive dampers. So if you're gonna daily something and you're having a flexible budget and you're willing to spend up to 50 grand, I'd probably suggest going up to the Integra A-Spec with the manual. Again, if that falls under your qualifications of a sports car, I'd say, maybe an Integra. That way you get the adaptive dampers. If you want to go even more pricey, you can, if you're lucky and you can find a Type R sticker, that technically is under 50 as well. That could be something. The only thing I will say, and if you saw my Type R review, you might have noticed, I said in my week with video that that 265 wide tires in the front on those, it was struggling to put the power down even whenever the road was just a little bit wet. So in snow, I'm like, maybe you can go down in tire size for the winter, put snows on it. But, once you get up to the Type R, it might be a little dicey just because they're so wide in the front. And with winter driving, you want skinnier tires. So that's why I'd probably actually say Civic Si would probably be a better pick for winter driving than a Type R. Or again, Integra, as long as you're not going for the Integra Type S. So there's that as far as front wheel drive stuff. And then... yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd say probably if you want the best fun per dollar, go for one of the ends from Hyundai, either the Veloster or the Elantra. That'd probably be the way I would go. And then you're well under that 50 grand cap, but I don't think you need to go up to 50 grand, especially with front wheel drive. There's not a whole lot of stuff, at that price point anyway. So I'd say one of those two would be my fit. It's just that they have so much adjustability with the adaptive dampers, the active exhaust. It has, a bunch of different modes. I mean, obviously the luxury is not there or anything, but I mean, it's a nice enough interior. Especially in the Elantra now, you're going to have the newer screens. If you get a brand new 2024 Elantra, you have the new screens. They have a great dual clutch if you want that, or if you want the manual, like you said, it's got a pretty good manual. It's not Honda good or anything, but it's a great manual in my opinion still. And so I think, that'd be my best recommendation. But if you have any follow-up questions, again, feel free to ask. But I think that's probably how I'd go. Mini Cooper S is also another fun, cool little one. I can't remember which ones get limited slip diffs. They might, I don't remember. But Mini Cooper S, if you can get one of those limited slip diff, that would be also a fun choice. That would be a little more luxurious. And, you can get any variation, whether it's the S or the John Cooper Works or whatever is, be a really fun little thing as well. So hopefully that helps you a little bit there. And thanks so much again for the question. Appreciate it, Joe. Jordan says, do you plan on keeping an ICE vehicle and EV so your daughter will experience both worlds when it's time for driving lessons? Hopefully, I mean, the goal is to keep the Bullet forever. So that's a vehicle that not only would I like her to experience it, but also like I would like to hand that car down to her and have it be a family heirloom if she's interested in that kind of thing. So I think, that's the plan. Especially I think for me, an ICE car makes sense because, I do occasionally do a road trip for either a media drive or I do something for, meeting up with some of you sometimes, to film car reviews. I do hit the road whenever I do road trips. Typically it is in the Bullets, and it's me by myself more so than like family road trips where again, I just hop on a plane instead if I'm going to drive more than a few hours. I think that's probably the idea is, always having the Bullet around and then having, whatever EV appliance, family hauler we need for, the other, around town stuff. Now, if our needs change and sometime, in the future, our daughter's competing in something or there's some other thing where we're doing long drives all the time, and these charging infrastructure isn't there in 5 years, which I think it will be, but even if it's not, then, we're open to going down to plug-in hybrids. I mean, even Beth and I, we were just sitting in a restaurant eating dinner just the other night, and we were admiring the Genesises again. We were sitting by the drive-through lane there, and they had the GV70s, a bunch of them driving through, GV80s. They're everywhere, at least here in the northern part of Pittsburgh. Genesis is really on a hit here. I mean, it's like every other car is like a GV70 now. It seems, or GV80. I mean, they're really doing well. So anyway, we both love the way both of them look. The interiors are so nice in them. They drive great. They're great value in my opinion. So, I think we're certainly like open to going back to ICE if, our needs required it. But I think Beth really especially loves the directness of the EV powertrain there and not having any kind of transmission lag and, all that. So, and I love the Mach-E as well. I think it's a great family vehicle. I wouldn't replace the Bullet with it in a million years, as far as a fun car for me. But as far as just a family hauler appliance kind of thing, it's really so good in that regard. So I think it's kind of nice to have both there for her to experience. I think, with our daughter, I mean, she's going to experience everything because of the press cars, so she'll, she gets to see, like this week, I've had a Wrangler and, she gets to experience a Jeep. And then, another week she's seeing, Corvette Z06 in the driveway and seeing that. Obviously she wasn't able to experience that because it's the 2-seater there, but, she's able to, she'll be experiencing everything. So she'll get a good, well-rounded, impression of everything that's out there, at that point in time, in addition to, dad's antique Bullet. So, so hopefully she'll have a well-rounded experience there. So let me see, where did I leave off? Sorry, I'm still behind on so I missed your super chat earlier. I apologize. I said, Matt, I give input. Maury, that was a lie. Yeah, no, Beth is really good about, making sure that, we're both on the same page as far as gifts and stuff. But, yeah, cause it's always it's never fun to be the only person making a decision. It's always nice if you have someone else there to kind of bounce ideas off of, and teamwork makes the dream work. Right. So, let me see. Nub says the Beers ETS is available to order. Yeah, I will be curious to see how that's received because it seemed like there's a lot of hate online when that first came out. Maybe it will do better than I'm expecting. I'm curious to test it out here, hopefully sometime next year. But at least they didn't price it insanely. The pricing came out. I didn't talk about it in the video yet, but the pricing seems decent for what it is. So, it's fine. I just wish they would have done more with it, but it is what it is. I've kind of, again, checked my expectations at the door with Subaru these days. Austin says, I had a 2007 Mustang V6 manual, and it was a pretty garbage powertrain overall. The old Cologne 4.0 only made 240 horsepower, and transmission was clunky and vague. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, those old V6s, I drove one at some point. It's kind of funny. So I was in the car club at my, I went to Virginia Tech for college. And so there was a guy there who had a V6 manual Mustang. I think his was like a 2007 too. And he liked it. He was pretty good about hustling on a back road. And I was back in those days, having my Legacy GT. But he seemed to enjoy it way back when. I haven't talked to that guy in over a decade now, but yeah, I don't know how it held up for him. I did have another friend that she had an automatic V6 Mustang at 2006, I think, and she really liked hers as well. And she liked it enough that she went up and got an S550 eventually, though, and went for the V8 the next time around. But she loved it. I rode around in her V6 Mustang a bunch back in college and stuff, and it was a nice car. I love that generation Mustang. They really nailed the retro thing perfectly. And I think as far as retro bullets goes, I think the 2008 bullet was actually the best bullet from a look standpoint. I love mine currently, but if I could have the '08 front end on my car, I think that would actually make it even better, to be totally honest. I love the actual 60s front end you had on the '08s. The new one's fine. It's good. I loved it enough to buy it and be very excited about it. But, if I could have the '08 look with the safety, tech, and performance of the 2019, it would be pretty much perfect. I mean, I already think the bullet's pretty perfect the way it is, but that could make it extra perfect, I guess I should say. And Austin says, Two must have found a briefcase full of money buried in the basement on fire with a super chat tonight. Yeah, good one there, Austin. Nate says, here in PA, we get rain usually. Yeah, it's always just the bland old rain, and that's it. So let me see here. Raphael says, feel free to visit for Christmas. I'll be buried under enough lake effect snow to look like the Arctic. That would be fun. Yeah, I would love to do like a Christmas getaway to some snowy place someday. That'd be amazing. I always see the Instagram reels of these picturesque, idyllic Christmas, locations for Airbnbs or whatever. And it'd be great to do something like that sometime. So I'm glad that some of you will be able to enjoy that though. Anyway, other questions here. Let me see. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to see everyone was able to snatch those up as well. But thanks so much, Kyle, for your generosity. I'm sure everyone appreciates it as well. And thanks for doing that every week too, Kyle. I really, really appreciate the support every week. It really blows me away, and I'm just so thankful. Let me see here. I'm getting caught up on questions a little bit here, I think. So, Two says, Austin, it's Matt's Mustang savings for the super chat there. Trent Car Guy says, it's only cold in the mornings here in Arizona unless you live near Flagstaff or in the mountains. Then again, people lose their minds anytime they see dark clouds in the sky. Yeah, it seems like California as well, same kind of deal. And Super Steve says, hey, Matt, what do you think about the theft of Kia and Hyundai with the no inhibitor key? Are other brands like our older Silverado easy to steal? Also, it does not have the inhibitor, or is it a design flaw with the Kia and the Hyundai? I believe, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm not the best person to ask probably about this, but I'm pretty sure it was just something with the Hyundais and the Kias that weren't push button start, and it was just exclusive to them. I mean, I think there's probably other cars that I guess probably don't have the newest tech in their keys, for the security thing. I mean, there's lots of cars that are easy to steal even with that. I mean, look at every various car has different design flaws. There's a flaw with the Chargers and the Challengers that makes them pretty easy to steal. There's other vehicles, so it's not unique to Kia and Hyundai, but there is, I mean, I think the best way to know if your vehicle is either easy to steal or just a top target to steal, and therefore people will find a way to steal it regardless of how hard it is. It's just a look at on the insurance companies put out their list of like most stolen cars every year, and you can see the top 10 there of what is the most stolen thing. Some of that also plays into just how many of those vehicles are out there. There's a gazillion F-150s, so naturally there's going to be a good amount of F-150 thefts just because of the amount of them that are out there. But there's it's a good way to find out others that might be more prone to theft, and that's kind of a good way to kind of sift through some of that stuff if that's something that you're concerned about for sure. But I think, it was like the Chargers and Challengers. I think people say there's like a kill switch that you should install. And then once you put that in, then it makes it pretty steel proof. So there's other workarounds, to get around that. So I don't think if you have a vehicle that is, more likely to be stolen and you don't have a way to secure the vehicle, like in a garage or something, I think that there's other things you can do to certainly give you some extra peace of mind there. And even if it's something as simple as having a dash cam that you have hardwired or have an external battery running to it to have it running in a parking mode, so you can always have it, especially if you have one of the cloud connected ones that's connected to Wi-Fi. Then you have that stuff recorded, and then you're covered. So there's that kind of stuff as well that can certainly give you some peace of mind too. And Doug says, Joe, get 2 sets of tires, summer and winter. In regards to the front wheel drive thing, it's definitely helps to have winter tires for sure. And then you can get it around. I mean, sometimes it depends on where you are and just how bad the snow is where you are. But I daily drove rear wheel drive cars in the snow for the past decade with the BRZ and then all the Mustangs. The Bullet's never really seen any kind of intense snow, but that will change this year because I finally put all season tires on it here. Not amazing, not as good as winter tires, but will give me some snow capability where the old, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires I had on it would have been a no-go for sure because it would have been a, super unsafe situation. So now I have all seasons. I will drive the Bullet in snow a little bit this year if we actually get decent amounts of snow. We'll see. I'm not going to look to like drive it in the snow, but if I happen to get caught in a snowstorm or something, at least I'll know I'll be able to have a little bit better traction. So, but yeah, it's definitely possible, especially with modern traction and stability control systems. That really helps you to have better stability and better safety, as well. So I think rear wheel drive isn't a deal breaker, at least me where I live and, my circumstances. Again, everyone's different, but, if you really want something that's not front wheel drive, there's other ways around that. There's awesome all wheel drive stuff these days too. That's an absolute blast. Like the GR Corolla, like the Audi RS3, which I guess you can get used probably under 50. So there's some other options, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. But Jordan says, most of us Matt fans agree on the Neon, the Beetle coming back as EV. Do you think GM could utilize the Saturn name for an EV with media coverage in space travel and clean energy? Jordan, me and you must be like on the same great minds think alike. I've been shouting from the rooftops for years that Saturn would make a prime Tesla competitor. It's another head scratcher, and yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't know why Saturn wasn't brought back as an all EV brand. I think that makes so much sense. It's got the futuristic vibe going for it. They could try out the quirky stuff like they did back then with the plastic fenders and stuff. They could really and it would give GM the flexibility to be more daring and not have to worry about, the expectations of an Equinox EV or a Blazer EV or whatever, and just kind of be quirky and weird and really go after Tesla and reverse engineer Tesla like, Ford did with the Mach-E without angering everyone like Ford did with the Mach-E. And I just, I think, GM was really burned in 2008 with, just the culling they had to do with all the brands and they've been burned with having too many brands before, but I feel like Saturn would have been an easy thing to bring back and wouldn't have been a huge risk. They could have bundled it into, all the Buick GMC dealers or something like that, which are, pretty much ghost towns for the most part, unless you're buying a GMC truck. But, they could have done something like that. And I don't know why they didn't, but yeah, totally agree with you. Saturn for sure. No brainer, in my opinion. I'm sure there's reasons why they haven't done it. I'm guessing that, we're not aware of, but to me, being on the outside here, it just seems like, it makes so much sense. And Trent Cargo says, I'd love to see the Neon come back, if only for the shocked, questioning expressions. Yeah, that'd be fun. But I think because I was just talking about that in the weekly update. What was it? Not this week, but last week. That they brought back that little Renault thing. I can't remember which, the Twingo. And that I'm like, it'd be great to see those kind of round headlights on like a neon and just bring back an electric neon for sure. It'd be so fun. And Austin says, hey, Matt, what's your opinion on BBC pulling the plug on Top Gear? Personally, I stopped watching as soon as Clarkson and the crew left. Yeah, I tried watching a few. I really like Chris Harris. Yeah, he just seems, I mean, I've never met the guy, you know, so personally, I don't know, but as far as just, he's a really good reviewer. I really enjoyed his videos, especially back in the old days of, you know, Drive on YouTube there and stuff. But, you know, so I liked watching Top Gear for the Chris Harris reviews, whenever it was the typical, like, actual car reviews, you know, from him. You know, the other stuff, they were always so hung up on having a celebrity. And I think that was the downfall of Top Gear. Is just, you know, they were too worried about just having a celebrity on it. And same thing with American Top Gear. You know, instead of getting good reviewers, because the people watching the show, they always were trying to go for this broader appeal. And I guess I can understand that. But I think especially here in the States, you know, Jay Leno's got that locked down with Leno's Garage and stuff like that. So I feel like they should have just gone with like good reviewers that had good on-screen, you know, personalities, and put them together, make sure the chemistry's there, but that's it. And don't be hung up on like, is this person a traditional celebrity who's been in movies or TV shows? And so I think, you know, I don't know. But yeah, I quit watching Top Gear many, many years ago. And yeah, mostly just, yeah, quit watching after the whole falling out with Clarkson and all them. But, you know, I tried giving it a chance, and it was just kind of cringy, honestly, aside from the Chris Harris bits. And so it was just, yeah, it's, you know, it's one of those things trying to fill the void of something that was so epic. You know, it was never going to be as good or even close to being as good. So it's unfortunate, but I think it makes a lot of sense to just pull it and just, you know, instead of trying to keep this, you know, this thing on life support, for lack of a better term, you know, I think it's just better just to, yeah, pull the plug there and let it die, unfortunately. And Joe said that was a great response for all this, for the all-season front-wheel drive cars under 50. Thank you. I appreciate it. Honestly, just thinking of any all-season manual sports cars as a hypothetical replacement for my STI. Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, I mean, again, it's a sports car. It comes down to what exactly you're looking for there. If you have an STI and you appreciate all-wheel drive, though, I gotta say the closest thing to a modern STI is a GR Corolla, and I love that car dearly. I'm sure you've probably already heard me, you know, going on and on for far too long about the GR Corolla. But you know, if I were an STI driver and I wanted that same experience in a modern car, I would just get a GR Corolla, hands down. Like, easy answer. GR Corolla, you still have the adjustable rear diff, just like the STI used to have. You know, you have the same raw feeling, the same boosty nature, but with much better fuel economy and not the reliability downfalls of the EJ motor and all that. Obviously, less space than the STI. So if you use your backseat a lot and you need a lot of leg room, or, you know, a nice huge trunk, you know, that's gonna be a downgrade compared to the GR Corolla's, you know, pretty small backseat and hatch. But if those two things aren't deal breakers, oh man, I'd say GR Corolla is the way to go. Anyway, happy to help Joe. And again, feel free if you have any follow-up questions either here, or feel free to also send me a message. I have all my social media stuff in the description below. You know, feel free to reach out if you want to, you know, go back and forth a little more there. Always happy to help people find a car they'll love. That's why I do this. Saturday, Jones says, have you driven the Q50 hybrid with a 3.5 and the hybrid system, 360 horsepower and good MPG, pretty ahead of its time, in my opinion? I agree. I have never driven one. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even know the last time I've seen one, unless they have a pretty big, I don't even know if they have a hybrid badge on them. I like, honestly, I know very little about those because they, at least around here, did not sell very many of them. I've never driven one. I would love to, and I agree. I think it's totally very ahead of its time. A 360 horsepower and a hybrid setup with a V6 sounds great. I don't know why they ever got rid of it. I mean, I guess there just wasn't enough demand, but I mean, yeah, that seems like it makes a ton of sense. And yeah, it's another one of those things. I guess they were too early, you know, that was too far ahead of its time, that it just was not the right timing. But if they want to freshen up the Q50 lineup in these last few years while they're waiting for the electric stuff to come online, there you go. Bring back the hybrid system. 360 horsepower would be awesome these days. Better fuel economy and all that would help bring up their fleet averages and stuff. I think that would be a great thing to reintroduce. Unfortunately, Infinity seems to not make the most common sense decisions these days. But yeah, thanks for bringing that car up. I forgot all about the Q50 hybrid, to be totally honest. And I'd love to try one out someday if I can get my hands on one. Yeah, it seems like a great car for sure. And Trenton Car Guy says, I'm not going to miss the driving in snow or freezing rain. Yeah, it's definitely, it's not always fun, but there's sometimes where it can be a lot of fun too. It just comes down to the circumstances. And Austin says, for Matt Cyber Monday fun. I appreciate it, Austin. Thank you so much for the super chat there and for joining in here. So yeah, we got another 12 minutes or so, and then we'll sign off here. So let me see, where was I? So Doug says, Matt, snow acceleration reaction in the Bullet all seasons. That could be a lot of fun. Yeah, maybe I think I do want to try and do a video talking about snow driving, just because with the Continental tires, I want to test them in all 4 seasons. And so I will drive them in snow just for that. I can probably set up a camera and try and get a reaction if there's a way that makes sense to do that. Sometimes it's like tough, because like a lot of the times, when we get snowfalls that are significant, it's overnight or in the evening hours. Filming, videos at night's kind of tough, especially in cabin stuff where you kind of want to see me talking, that makes it a little tough. But if I can find a daytime time where I can get out in the Bullet with some snow, I will try and do a snow acceleration reaction. I'll turn the traction control off and just let it rip. That'd be fun. That's a good idea. Thank you for the suggestion, Doug. I will try and make that happen. Austin says GM should have kept Pontiac. They built excitement. They definitely did build excitement. I miss Pontiac as well. I think they were just like, I see Blazer guy saying that Pontiac wasn't done yet. I don't think they were either. I think the G8 was a great thing, and I think if the G8 were allowed to live on, I mean, obviously it did with the Chevy SS, but I think if those two cars would have been sold alongside each other, I think the G8 would have eventually actually been the better seller, because I think it would have given you something distinctive. It didn't look like an Impala. It would be under that performance brand, which, I mean, Chevy obviously has plenty of performance stuff as well, but it would have, I think that car would have fit better with the Pontiac vibe. Funny, I didn't even mean to do that, but not the Pontiac vibe, but the vibe of Pontiac. And so, I think that, yeah, it's a shame Pontiac went away. I think they made some great stuff, to be totally honest. I know it was kind of, they were an easy target to criticize, whenever they were around in their final few years there. But I always thought Pontiac was cool. So yeah, it would have been nice to see that. I think Oldsmobile was an easy one to nix. And honestly, I think Buick, no one would have really missed too much here in the States. They only kept Buick around because of the Chinese market. I think they still have kept it around solely for that reason alone. But yeah, it would have been nice to see Pontiac and Saturn survive. And Trent Car Guy said, also, the last time Dodge made a smaller sedan, we got the Dart, which wasn't too well received, which makes no sense either, because the Dart was a great car, in my opinion. I still stand behind that statement, and I loved it. I reviewed a Dart when they first, were out. I thought it was a great car. Best infotainment tech. It had an 8.4-inch screen back in like 2015. That was not common. That was a big deal, especially for that segment of car. Way ahead of its time. Great powertrain. You can get with a manual and a turbo, and it actually handled well. I thought it looked good. I don't know why the Dart was an utter failure. That was another one where I actually really just felt bad for Dodge, because I think, like, if I were running Dodge in 2015 and they said, hey, make it a small sedan, I would have done exactly what they did with the Dart. I would have done the same exact thing and been like, this is going to be a surefire hit, and then it failed. I don't know why that is. I think the reliability kind of hurt it a little bit, but a lot of people have solid reliability with those too. So I don't even think it's that. I honestly don't know. The Dart's a mystery to me as far as why that didn't do better. But anyway, let me see here. Some other member questions. Where was I? So Goth Rocker says, Matt, I get my message about the 2023 WRX TSB on the cracked front drive shaft issue. It may also be an issue on the Crosstrek and the Forces as well. Interesting. Yeah. So I got your message on the original one there, Rich. I have to check back. I didn't check my Facebook messages yet today to see if you had any follow-up messages. So I'll definitely check out on that. But yeah, that's crazy about the drive shafts having issues in those. And hopefully it's not super widespread, but I'm hoping they also, if there's, was it the RTV thing that the BRZs have had? Hopefully Subaru is getting caught up on their TSBs and they address that too, if they haven't yet. But Guardian says, I thought the Avenger was better than the Dart. I thought it was the other way around. I mean, because the Avenger was just kind of, I guess if you like the naturally aspirated motors and stuff, but I mean, the interior was just so much nicer than the Dart, in my opinion, at least. I don't know. I mean, the Avenger was a great name. it just, I don't know, to me, the Avenger sedan just was a little underwhelming. The Avenger coupe from the 90s, that was so cool. That was back in the glory days of Dodge in the 90s there, in my opinion. But yeah, the regular Avenger was not super in love with those, to be totally honest. And Garth Walker says, Matt, I gave up on Top Gear as well. I think a lot of people did, and that's probably part of why they killed it off as well. And Shrek Car Guy agrees about the Avenger not being great, and he owns a mid-2000s Dodge. I said, Guardian says now the Hornet is the replacement, insert sad face. I mean, the Hornet has its place. It's the fastest thing, in its segment at its price point. And, for some people, that'll be enough. They got to get the issues worked out on those. I mean, they were just so glitchy when I had the Hornet and the Tenale. I think if the glitches worked out, there's a case to be made there. But, and I think Dodge also, it seems like they're already incentivizing those. So if they bring the price down with, putting cash on the hood, that'll certainly help their sales, hopefully, for those. Because I think, if it's priced well and they don't have glitches, I think I have nothing against the Hornet. It's totally fine otherwise. It's just, those two things kind of let it down. And Trent Carguy says, honestly, it looks like if it isn't one of their main money makers like the Charger, Challenger, or Durango, Dodge doesn't seem to put in much effort. But see, I don't know. To me, the Dart, they put a lot of effort into it. I think it just, I don't know. I honestly, I can't figure it out. Let me see. So Guardian says Durango sticking around for a few more years at least. Yeah, that's gonna be one of the last of the old Dodge tech here. They're keeping that around until what? Till the 2026 or 2026 calendar year, I think. 26 model year, one or the other. It's when the new Durango finally comes. Joe says it's always tempting to have two cars. Definitely, if you can justify that, just adding more to the collection and having a different car for every occasion would be great. Doug says, yes, can't wait for snow acceleration parking lot reactions. Yeah, we will see. Hopefully I can make it happen. We'll see. Brian says, what is your favorite episodes of UK Top Gear? That's a good question. I think the Stelvio Pass episode is one of my favorites. Where they take, it's the GT3 RS, the 997 generation, the Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera, and then the Aston Martin V8. It was like a rough, like race car kind of version. That one is still hands down one of my favorite episodes. Those adventure episodes were so good back then. The Arctic Special was another highlight. Or the Polar Special, it was called. That was great. But there were so many good episodes back then. All the challenges, the ones that I drove across Japan were great. Honestly, I mean, like all UK Top Gear, it's honestly, I think it'd be easier for me to say like a bad episode than like, I think they're all so good. So I feel like there's less. Yeah, there's way more good ones than bad ones for the UK Top Gear. It was just every single episode was just so good. So yeah, I love UK Top Gear. I really miss it too. And the Grand Tour, now that it's evolved into just the adventure things is great. And I still love every single one of those. And I'm always super excited when they come out with a new one of those. But, I miss their like super high production value car reviews that are just hilarious and insane. The Fiesta review from UK Top Gear is another highlight that just popped into my brain where they were on what did they do? They did like a desert, or they did a beach assault in like one of those military like beach assault vehicles. And they did the whole thing with the little Fiesta. He's like, look, a grenade fits in the cup holder perfectly. Just the insane stuff that they did back then. It was so good. They're just brilliant. I mean, Top Gear UK is what inspired me to do car reviews and wanting to get into, car review videos, as me and, a million other, people that are trying to do car reviews on YouTube here. But, it's still just brilliant. I still love all three of those guys so much. They're all just so hilarious, and just everything they say is just hilarious to me. Typically, Jeremy Clark's is problematic every once in a while, but aside from that, I mean, they're all great, and it's always good watching all of them, especially interact together. But anyway, last couple of minutes here, try and get caught up with the questions here before we sign off. So Garth Walker said, talk to two Kia Stinger owners that had serious buyer's remorse, multiple issues, and dealerships not being very cooperative, not good, and sad. That's surprising because I've heard a lot of people that really love Stingers, and people that have either messaged me over the past 5 years here and said they love them. I've seen other YouTube channels of other YouTubers covering Stinger ownership that really have loved them. I see a bunch of Stingers around here. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it comes down to who you talk to, but I've generally gotten a good impression from Stinger owners in the past. And there's been a couple that have actually messaged me multiple times and followed up in years since. And I mean, they're not perfect vehicles, but they seem like they really enjoy them. I certainly would still totally own one if I needed something again in that kind of segment and price category and all that. But yeah, I still love the Stingers. But you got to do what's best for you, Rich. So if it doesn't, if it's something that's a little freaky for you, and you're hearing some bad stuff, then by all means, there's lots of good options out there, to fit everyone's preferences there. And let me see. Joe says an all-wheel drive beater car and more of a fun car. Yeah, that'd be a good combo. That's what a lot of people do, and makes a lot of sense for sure. And Goth Worker says Pontiac never should have gone away, but the government made them go. Two of my best cars. I have two Pontiac Bonnevilles, were great sports sedans, put tons of miles on them, lasted over 200,000 miles. Yeah, they seem like they're pretty solid, especially some of those V6 ones. That was a 3000 series motors or whatever that were pretty solid motors, all things considered and stuff. It's a shame Pontiac didn't last. Trent Car Guy says I considered buying a manual Dart but couldn't afford it. Yeah, well, in those last few years they got pretty cheap though. They really brought the prices down. Even now, if you still are interested in one, Trent Car Guy, I mean, I'm sure, manual Darts are probably pretty cheap these days. But I see. Marco says just hopping in to say hello, about to watch Yellowstone. Good night, y'all. Thanks for saying hi, Marco. I appreciate it. And I'll be signing off here in a minute or so as well. Nub says Subaru identified the units affected by that shaft issue. It's being addressed. Okay, well, that's great to hear. Thanks for that, Nub. And Jordan says a good percentage of Americans are interested in Dayton racing. What do you think the realm of EV racing could do to pull in more fans? Maybe EV rally? I think that the what is it called? The electric or Formula E. I think that's kind of going to do a little bit of that. But I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I mean, I think the thing with EVs and racing. I'm trying to keep this short so I don't go too far over time here. But I think EVs everyone's already established that like EVs are fast. Like Tesla did that for us in the past 10 years here, especially. We know that electric vehicles are very fast. I think most average people already know that. They've seen enough, Tesla videos and stuff like that. And just the general impression is like electric equals fast. So I feel like there doesn't need to be any convincing done there with motorsport. I think that really, if you want to make the biggest impression to convert people to EVs with motorsport, I would probably target the durability and the endurance stuff. Have EVs, try and participate in the longer races, which is tough with the batteries. But I think that would make an impression if you had an EV that somehow managed to do the 24 hours of Le Mans, or you had an EV that did, even endurance like Baja racing or something. If they made an electric Raptor race car or race truck or something like that, and we're like, hey, look, we're like beating the crap out of this battery and it's not exploding. Like people might think the batteries explode or something, or try and address some of the misinformation out there about EVs through motorsport. I think that could be kind of the best approach, because I think everyone already knows they're fast. So I don't think motorsport needs to really, push that. I think it's just, about driving home like, wow, these things are super reliable, super durable. Rallycross could potentially do that, but that's kind of always been a European thing. So I feel like something like truck racing would be more an American thing to, make people more excited about that a little bit. But, I think something like that could possibly be the way to go about it. Just spitballing here, but I think if you drive home the whole like, wow, it's really durable, it's really reliable, it's really safe, I think that could kind of be a good way to go about it. I don't know. But Trent Car Guy says honestly the US special where they pretended to be doing a factual documentary is pretty funny. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, coming to the States that was another really good really good episode. Trent Car Guy also says I might be biased, but the Evo 8 and 9 and Murcielago reviews, there was so many good reviews. Every single review was amazing. Basically, they did back then. And Gothrock Girl said the two I talked to loved the Stinger cars, but one still had brake wear issues. The other had 2 turbos installed, and dealer did not cover the full bill. I guess it was a 50-50 chance with what you get. Gotcha. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Hopefully Stingers are holding up well and people don't have too much remorse. I know it's the very first model year, there was some quirks. I know there was like a rattle with the rear cargo cover and things like that. So maybe a non-first year one would be better. I don't know, but yeah, it's hard to say without having all the info there. But Trent Cargo says, have a good week, everyone. See you next week. Yeah, so we'll be signing off here. And Jordan, yeah, I see Daytona is what you meant there instead of date, and I should have put that together as well. But I get what you mean, yeah, with the Daytona 500 and all that being yeah, definitely very popular races for sure. And so I think, just being able to do 500 laps in an EV would be, a good statement for sure. Things like that. And yeah, so thanks for the great questions, Jordan, for everyone, for all the great questions and all the great car chat here this week. I hope you guys enjoy the live stream as well here, and have a great week as well here. Hope you're enjoying the holidays here, and I hope it's a good week back from all the Thanksgiving overeating and all that. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining in. Be sure to stay tuned. We got some more fun stuff here this week. I'm going to be posting the Tacoma video that everyone's been anxiously awaiting here. That'll be coming on Tuesday. And even on Monday here tomorrow, I'll have a special review for Cyber Monday. So it'll be one that if you're a longtime fan, you will definitely not want to miss it. So I will just leave it at that. And there's even going to be a fun little Easter egg in it as well. So definitely check that out tomorrow. I think a lot of you will really like it. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. And thanks again for hanging out here tonight.